All right, welcome to the May 2023 Board of Regents meeting. Good to see a full house here today. We want to start with approval of minutes from our April 19th, 2023 meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve or any amendments?
Mr. Chair, so moved.
I hear a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? All right, we're off to the races. Let's start with introductions. I know President Mason has one.
It's my pleasure to introduce our 23-24 Student Government Association President, Ella Burrows. Ellen's from Satanta, Kansas, and is a fourth-generation Tiger. She's a junior majoring in political science. Ella is an honor student, VIP ambassador, Newman Civic Fellow, and a member of Delta Zeta sorority. She's a person of high integrity whose friendly manner inspires trust and collaboration. I'm also like to take this opportunity to thank Ryan Stanley for his service as our SGA president this past year. Ryan always perpetuates high standards, invites collaboration, and inspires greatness from all with whom he works. Ryan will begin an HR business internship at the end of the month with Well Sky Corporation in Overland Park. You may recall that Ryan was last year's NCAA Division II pole vault champion, and he has continued to further his skills. He recently won the MIAA Outdoor Championship in pole vault this year, and he heads to his last NCAA National Championship on the 25th of May. His season best, 17 feet and 7 inches. Good luck, Ryan.
President Numa.
Regents, good to see you this month. I'd like to acknowledge our incoming Faculty Senate President, Jolynn Dowling. Jolynn, if you'd stand up, she is a professor of nursing, and I believe you actually have taken over the reins at this point. So we're thankful for your service. And our outgoing student faculty president, Susan Castro, who's a philosophy professor. Thank you both. And our incoming SGA president, Iris O'Curie, who is a marketing major. And our incoming vice president in student government is Sophie Martins, who is a political science and pre-law major. And I believe that John Kirk, who is our outgoing student body president, is here. Thank you for your service.
Any other introduction, President Linton?
Good afternoon. I would like to, first of all, thank our outgoing student body president, Parker Volgamore. If you could please stand. Give him a big round of applause. Parker is just graduated with a degree in ag economics and will continue on at K-State with a graduate degree. Our new incoming student body president, which you'll have a great opportunity to interact with over the next year as Kansas State takes over July the 1st, is Caleb Stout. If you could please stand. Give him a round of applause. He is also an ag economics major, junior. And also here today with us is our new incoming faculty senate president, Don Von Bergen from our Salina campus.
Any other introductions? Okay, thank you guys very much. Welcome. And good luck to the newbies. Thank you to the outgoing SGA leadership. Appreciate everything you've done this year. So time for the chair report. Did a lot of meeting and traveling this last month. I want to thank President Carter File and the team at Hutch Community College for hosting me. I think it was May 7th, somewhere right around there, for a visit to Hutch. It was great. Got to see the facilities and learned a lot. And Heather, thank you for making the trip over for that. Then along with Vice Chair Ice and President Flanders, we met with the leadership of the State Board of Education this week on Monday. That was top to top deal, Chair and Vice Chair and Commissioner Watson and President Flanders. As we talk about the issues in front of us and where we can work together, I just continue to be encouraged at their willingness to look forward and proactively shape the future where education beginning to end is gonna go in Kansas as we're trying to do the same. Gives me a lot of hope for where our state's headed after that meeting. So that was good. Then I had the opportunity on Mother's Day to spend Mother's Day with Chancellor Drott, whose daughter was graduating from law school. Congratulations. It was a great experience to attend that graduation and to be a part of that tradition and to see a little bit of the Chancellor's heart just for his daughter as he was talking about that. I know that all my fellow regents help represent at these graduations, and it's a great reminder of why we do what we do. Proud of all the accomplishments of the graduates out there, and just really are thrilled about to see what they're going to do. And part of my comments too, when I was bringing the greetings from the board, is just not only thinking about the accomplishments that they have had and how they will impact the world with their future accomplishments, but really how they go about it. And I hope that the graduates that we're producing from Kansas as they go will continue to bring more light and joy and peace into this world as they go forward. So congratulations to all the graduates out there.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would just add that your comments were the headline of the newspaper article the next day. So, well done.
Well, I appreciate that. It's nice when there's not a keynote to compete with you. So I'm just kidding. No, it's good. It's the why goes beyond the what. We got to remember that in here, and we got to remind the kind of future of our state of those opportunities. So grateful to serve alongside all of you, and grateful that we get along well enough that you invite us to your graduations. Okay, so I have 2 certificates of appreciation also. So as we go through these, there's it rotates through the universities that there's leaders of the different groups. So the groups of faculty, presidents, student groups, and that was KU this year. And I want to thank 2 people in particular, Dr. Nate Brunsell, who usually is joining us via Zoom. I don't see him in the room. He's on Zoom. So I'll thank you. And then we have a certificate that we'll mail to you, and then I'll present the other one to President Sadie Williams here in a second. But Dr. Brunsell, I just wanted to tell you how much we appreciate you. I feel like the communication was really good from you this year, and clear and concise as we were taking on a lot of issues. I felt like you did a good job bringing a clear message and representing that group well. And so we want to thank you for your service. And also just want to thank and recognize President Sadie Williams, who's here, who also won the Carol K. Smith Student Leadership Award at the University of Kansas as she graduated this on Sunday. To thank you for your work. We gave the student body presidents more homework than we ever have, at least in the last 4 years that I know of, and they gave us such useful information. And it's been so refreshing, so great to have the working relationship we've had this year. We look forward to that continuing, but I want to recognize Dr. Brunsell via the internet and President Williams also for their service in that way. So if you want to come up, Sadie, I'll give you your certificate.
Congratulations, Sadie.
All right, and that concludes the chair's report. So now I'll pass it on to President CEO, President Flanders.
Thank you, Chair Rolfe, and I too have had a great month. I'd like to thank President Mason for welcoming me to commencement exercises at Fort Hays State University. And a great meal after the commencement was finished for lunch, and had a great discussion with legislators who also were there and recognized and it was a great event. I also had the opportunity to continue to monitor and really think about more broadly how we help our industry partners such as Panasonic, Regent Harrison Lee, and myself had a visit with President Greg Mosier at Kansas City, Kansas Community College, and they really want to help and partner in that effort. And I think we need to, remember that although many of the students in that talent pipeline will have baccalaureate degrees and significant number of engineers, there's also a large number of students that will have shorter term credentials, workers that'll have perhaps associate degrees. And so that it's going to take our entire system to fill that pipeline. And it is a tall task. We've also been working with a company called EAB that helps with student success. We've come to a general agreement, and each university is looking at how to best do those contracts. But this is really going to help us in two ways. It's going to enhance our student success platform that the legislature and governor have partnered with us on, and we're appreciative of that funding support. And then I think in terms of some of the data, it can also help us with our aspirations for a very high quality comprehensive dashboard where we can monitor system progress in that area. And then the final item I just wanted to let this board and system know about as we continue to collaborate and work with the Kansas Department of Commerce as we look at the best ways that our system can respond to the CHIPS and Science Act. And so at present we're looking at how do we maybe get a designation for a tech hub in our state and how to best go about that process. And I would say that all of the institutions are participating in that activity, and all the institutions in the entire system, because there's a research component and a workforce component, and I expect it to be hopefully a big win for our state. So that concludes my report.
Any questions for President Flanders? Okay, let's welcome via the World Wide Web, Dr. Nate Brensel for the report from the Council of Faculty Senate Presidents.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'd also like to thank you so much for the kind words. It really has been a pleasure working with all of you this year, as I think we have engaged in a lot of topics, and not all of them have been easy. So I really appreciate the engagement and any help that we were able to give to you and your considerations. Officially, I am no longer Faculty Senate President, and so I guess I'm no longer Faculty Senate President, Chair of the Faculty Senate President's Committee. But Victor Gonzalez is the incoming Faculty Senate President at KU. So I guess he will be taking the reins for at least the next month's meeting before it transitions over to K-State for the next year. And the only other thing I'd like to say is I'd like to encourage you to continue working with the Faculty Senate Presidents next year, and hopefully we can have more engagement. And as you've considered a lot of these issues, that you reach out to the Faculty Senate Presidents, as well as all of the faculty throughout our institutions that can offer advice and help. And we have a lot of academic expertise in a lot of these areas and a lot of these things that we deal with, and that you have to deal with the board while we try to help all of the students in the state. So I would encourage that you continue to do that as we have this year. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Brunson? Thank you again for your service. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Now for the report from Student Advisory Committee, President Sadie Williams, will you come on back up?
All right. Thank you so much, Chair Rolfe and President Flanders, and to the rest of the board. So for this last report, I don't have much substantial to offer all of you, but upon reflection of the year and all the things that we've been able to accomplish and getting to work together in this way, we realized we never really did intros. And so instead, we're going to do a little outro for you all today. And so I'm going to go through the list of the student body presidents for this past year and kind of tell you a little about them, and then they're going to stand as we say them. And so up first with Kansas State University, the University for Kansas, Parker Volgamore. He just graduated a couple of days ago with a Bachelor's of Science in Agricultural Economics, and his plans over this next year is to return to Kansas State and for his Master's in Agricultural Economics. Okay. From Pitt State University, we have Taryn Brenner. Taryn is majoring in business management and marketing and is pursuing her certificate in professional selling and sales management. She has an internship with Dr. Dan Ship and is finishing her last year at school and then hopefully moving on to graduate school thereafter. Thank you, Taryn. Representing Emporia State University is Bella Price. She graduated just a couple of days ago as well with a Bachelor's of Science in History with a minor in Communication and is going to work at Emporia State for a year and then moving on to law school. Representing Wichita State for this past year has been John Kirk. He has his bachelor's degree in vocal music and psychology with a minor in organizational leadership and also graduated a couple of days ago. He has been accepted into graduate school at Wichita State for higher education and student affairs and will be working in President Muma's office and continue his work for the people. Thank you. You already heard this intro, but I'll say it again. From Fort Hays State University is Ryan Stanley. He graduated with his MBA and with a specialization in human resources and has an internship with Wells Sky in Overland Park over this summer after hopefully winning another national championship. And unable to be with us today was Shaden Haynes from Washburn. She has a double major in international business and marketing with a double minor in leadership and political science. So very busy gal. And she also graduated just a couple of days ago. She will be moving to New Jersey for a job in the Fiserv Sales Development Academy program. And then I also got to say my farewell to KU this past Sunday and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and English with a minor in Spanish. And I'll be moving to DC come September. So I'm really excited for that. Yeah. I did a couple of things. But it was really important to me in this last address to you all to acknowledge the people who have been like with me every single step of the way. I've really enjoyed getting the chance to give these reports to each of you, but I would not have been able to do so without such an incredible team behind me. I've been told it's rather unique that we all get along this well. And so I feel very grateful to have had a truly exceptional year representing students alongside each of the people that I just named, and also all of their team members who come to K-Board meetings as well. And so with that, thank you all so much for such a fun year. It's truly been an honor to represent students at this level. It's not something that any of us take lightly, and we know it is a true privilege to be able to talk with you all in these spaces. And we hope to stay in touch. And we also wanted to kind of give you a physical reminder of our gratitude. And so I joked earlier, there's not money inside of it, surprise, surprise. But there is thank you cards for each of you. We just wanted to sign them and give you something. We're still college students at the end of the day, so no Starbucks gift cards or anything like that. But we wanted to be sure to really illustrate our thanks for each of you and for all that you've done, as well as some other individuals who've helped us out along the way outside of serving as regents. So yeah, thank y'all so much.
There you go. Any?
I'll literally cry.
Thank you. Any questions for President Williams? All right, that's good you didn't put money in here right before the fee proposals.
I know, it's like, that's where it came from.
We appreciate it. I'll tell you, your involvement in this year made us better regents. So, and I say that to the whole SAC. So thank you all for the way you participated and the way you helped. So thank you very much. And congratulations to all of you. All right. We're going to move into the standing committees, academic affairs, Regent Kiblinger.
Several things to report. Carla Whitscomb presented a concurrent enrollment report, which you will all be hearing later on today. Daniel Archer presented on the math reform and performance funding work, which will also be part of our discussion today with the full board. We discussed the possibility of having a free application week in which the undergraduate admission application fee would be waived during a week in October. And we've kind of referred that back, I think to like Coco to continue diving into that and seeing what the feasibility and implications would be. The committee discussed creating a new program review process. The provost will be providing feedback by next Friday on criteria and review cycle progress. And also we have plans to touch base with that group again before our next BASC meeting. Regent Lane discussed the concurrent dual task force draft recommendations. Daniel Archer provided an update on the system-wide general education work and noted that a general education council has been formed that will work on implementation this summer. Regent Lane also gave an update on the educator workforce task force, and community college leaders will review and approve the statewide transfer associate degree in elementary education this summer. And that is my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Shelley or academic affairs? Y'all have been taking on a lot of big projects this year. We're grateful for the work and the progress that you're continuing to make. On that. All right, let's go to fiscal affairs and audit. Regent Ice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had our agenda call on May 2nd and then of course met this morning. We began with the familiar approval of the minutes. And we got that done. On the consent agenda, there are several items. You can rest assured we went through them appropriately between the two meetings. Those include some projects, the JCERT budget, the comp grant allocation, and the nursing initiative. We talked about the schedule of our financial plans through the rest of the year, but did not engage in the financial 5-year capital plan because we'll do that in this meeting. The majority of our time were discussions on the state universities tuition and fees. We heard from the students and from the CFOs. They were comprehensive, thoughtful, well done reports. Of course, we're going to go through those again here because this is a place that all the region's perceptions is incredibly important. For anyone who wants to look at the proposals, they are all online now on the board website. So you can look at those as appropriate. With that, we'll stand for questions.
Questions for Regent Ice, fiscal affairs. Buddy. All right. I sat through part of your meeting today. I appreciate the depth that you all go to and the presentations and work that everybody put into the comprehensive nature of it all.
I think we were so focused, we didn't realize you came in. So, or it was stealthy, one of the two.
I forgot my trumpet players to come in first, but
Thank you for spending time with us.
all right, governance. The governance committee had a somewhat abbreviated meeting this morning in order to accommodate other meetings committee members were needing to attend. After approving the April meeting minutes, the committee again discussed the 2024 University CEO assessment form and process and the feedback received from the chancellor and presidents on the proposed changes to the form. The committee finalized its recommendations for updates and improvements, and those will be on the June agenda for full board consideration. The most substantive change the committee will be asking the board to consider in June is adding a new section to the form for evaluation of the university CEO's progress on implementing the board's goals. Finally, the committee had an executive session to discuss CEO compensation for fiscal year 2024. Any questions around governance? Okay. I forgot two things I wanted to mention during my chair report. So we're going to chair report part 2 here. One, I just want to recognize President Shipp rode his bike here today. So President Shipp, can you give us an update on how many miles you've ridden, how many you got to go, and how the fundraising is going around scholarships?
Thanks for that, Chair Rolfe. So a couple of shout outs to Regents who were out on the road, the trail. So Regent Lane, Regent Benson. We had a fun time the last couple of days. We're probably close to 120 miles. I'm looking at our team, some of them that are here to get to this point. And that's been a lot of fun. We're meeting all kinds of people as we go. We've had alumni receptions in 3 different locations. So that makes it, for me as a newcomer still to Kansas, a really enjoyable way to get to know the state. So how is the fundraising going? So we're tracking how many gorillas we've met. We consider everyone to be a gorilla in a way. And so we're gonna add up everybody here in this room too as part of the trip. And dollars raised. So we're really doing pretty well. Our goal is to go 800 miles plus by the time we're all finished, and raise about $8 million, which would be, you know, singularly one of the largest fundraising efforts that we've ever led. So we're all trying to put it into the hands of students. That's the goal for this, to really build an endowment so that we can have a lot more gorillas in the future down in Southeast Kansas.
Great work.
Thank you. Thanks for recognizing it.
How's the AC feel? Pretty good.
So, right, so that's where, and you know, I should say students have helped lead and plan the whole trip. And we have a whole team to this, but I'll tell you what, our students, they would say, well, how far do you think you can go every day? It is the seat that I think will be the challenge, and maybe a little bit of neck, but nothing some ibuprofen can't handle.
All right, that's great. Well, thank you very much for the update. I'm proud of the work you're doing. Also just want to highlight among our distinguished colleagues that are around this table, we have Regent Winter is being inducted into the Lawrence Business Hall of Fame as part of junior achievement. So congratulations. Right there on the front page. Are you okay if we just call you Hall of Famer from now on? Is that right?
Yeah, there's no money.
Usually it's a donation that goes with it too.
Yeah.
Well, good work. Congratulations. I know you've had a long and distinguished career, so. And then I will be departing the meeting early to attend my daughter's 8th grade graduation, so I'm excited about that. A little Emma Rolfe. And one of the things I want to do as we get into the agenda here is I want to move up. I like spending our best energy on the most important things or the heaviest things. And so I want to move that we take item B1 on our agenda, which is discussing the tuition and fee proposals, and move that up to the top of the discussion agenda to be our first item. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
All right. Any questions or comments or discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Okay. That'd be our first item under discussion. Next up, we have the election of the fiscal year 2024 board chair and vice chair. I've asked Regent Harrison Lee to lead this part of the meeting. So Regent Harrison Lee, please take over as chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for the board chair.
Madam Chair, I have a motion.
Okay, Regent Lane.
You know, we've had a remarkable year focused on Build a Future and made tremendous progress toward accomplishing success for each of our 3 pillars, the most important being our students. And so as I've thought about that, and I thought about the importance of the leader who keeps us focused on the why, it has brought me to this motion today. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we reappoint Chair John Rolfe as chair for the upcoming academic year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I would second.
Thank you, Regent Benton. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Regent Rolfe, thank you very much. Chair Rolfe again.
Thank you all for the trust. If you guys didn't make this job so fun, wouldn't have said yes again. So thank you very much for just that distinguished honor. You guys have let me be chair of this group of leaders and people who are so committed to the future of higher ed in this state. And I just love the team that we have going on right now, the momentum that we have going on right now, and where we're positioning Kansas for the future. So thank you all for your work.
We appreciate your commitment. We just need to know who's going to do those theatrical motions. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion for vice chair.
I'd make the motion that the vice chair for next year be Regent Carl Ice once again.
Is there a second? Okay. Moved and properly second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion carries. Congratulations to you, Vice Chair Ice, and thank you for your commitment.
Honored to work with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Rolfe.
Thank you, Regent Harrison Lee. It's now time for the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in our board books?
Chair Rolfe,
Yes,
I move approval of the consent agenda.
I hear a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, we're through the consent agenda. You'll remember just moments ago, we moved up in the agenda, item B1 to receive presentations and discussion on the state university tuition fee proposals. I'll just make comment again, this is the first read, so a great opportunity to ask questions, to dig deep. And then we will vote on this in our June meeting. So Elaine, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations. I am going to start by referring to page 75 of your agenda materials. We provided you with just a little context of where the tuition revenues, the state universities are going to talk to you today about how they fit in with the rest of their bigger budgets. We're talking billions of dollars in play here for the entire all funds budget. But when you talk about tuition, you have to zoom in a little bit and think more in terms of their general use budget, which is essentially their base state general fund appropriation from the legislature added to student tuition. And we just give you some charts there to give you some context for how this tuition proposal, how these proposals fit in with their operating. On page 76, we give you a table just as a reminder for the past 5 years, where has the board increased tuition? And you can see in 2019, there were some increases, and in 2021 and one in 2022. Otherwise, there are a lot of zeros in that table. So I wanted to make sure that folks were reminded of that. When we ask for university proposals, we do give a standard structure and how we ask for the information. And so you'll see there on page 77 and rolling over to 78, just how the instructions were given so that you get some structured, uniform information on the proposals. And then I'm going to change gears and look over in the separate book that you were provided. This information in the separate book has been published on our website with the other agenda materials for the public to access. And the only thing I want to say here then is starting on page 3 of your book, we provide you table 1, which is simply the different rates of standard tuition for each of the major campuses, graduate, undergraduate, resident, non-resident. Table 2 adds on required fees, so you get a broader picture of the fiscal effect of your decisions that you'll make in June, how those affect students. Table 3 then simply gives you a sense for how much revenue are we talking about for the state universities. And you see for the different campuses, the effective enrollment changes over time on how, change in mix and also a pure change in numbers, how that'll affect tuition revenues at our state universities. And then we flow right into each of the individual proposals. And I believe the CEOs are going to give you some brief comments about those. And I think we have some PowerPoints for you.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Do we have, I'm turning all kinds of pages here. AU is first. Yep. Chancellor Gerard.
Great. Thank you very much and congratulations, Chair and Vice Chair, and condolences, I suppose, as well. But thank you for agreeing to commit the amount of time that you do to this enterprise. I think we see it a lot more than most of how much time you all put in, all of you collectively, but certainly the Chair and the Vice Chair. So thank you very much for agreeing to do it a second time. I thought you were quicker learners than that. And congratulations, Dan. He was at Free State Brewery in Lawrence last night on his trip, and I was unfortunately in Liberal, Kansas, couldn't have been further away, but was not able to join you. But congratulations, and you're crazy, my friend. That's all. I might do it on my motorcycle. I would never do it on a bicycle. But good luck to you on your and be safe, please, out there. As I present our proposal, I want to again thank all the finance teams on campuses for pulling this together. but it really does take a village, and with a lot of input, both from our students. I want to thank again student body president Sadie Williams for leading that effort, but also outgoing vice president Alicia Garcia and our graduate student representative Holly Hall, who have all really had a lot of input into this, and through our student governance, which you heard this morning, really tremendous input from over 1,000 students to weigh in on this. And then, of course, our faculty representatives as well, who provide input. And you saw Nate Brunsell earlier. Thank you, Nate, for your service. And we hope to have our incoming folks here for the June meeting for an introduction. But a lot of work goes into all of this. Just quickly, we'll talk about our proposal for the university and put some highlights on that, and then we'll get into it in a little bit more detail. Do I get to run the slides? I do. Thank you. So just from a highlight perspective, we're asking or proposing a 5% standard tuition increase across all our campuses and all our cohorts. And really with recognition that actually only partially covers our costs. And I'll talk about that a little bit better. We do have a couple fee proposals there from the medical center, just one change at the medical center, and that's in our nurse anesthesia program with a course fee rate increase of $100 per credit hour. I'll talk about that. And then I'll talk about our student fee changes on the Lawrence Edwards campus, which is a total of $14.45. And then a couple other things we are requesting. One is in our School of Pharmacy. They are currently running on a tuition compact, and we would like to move away from that. The entire university used to be on that probably 8 or 9 years ago. It's really kind of clunky to manage actually, and actually involves more money on the front end to be the same on the back end. And so we think they're requesting to move away from that to create that flexibility as well. And then just getting some alignment of our non-resident student waiver programs and also both at Lawrence and Edwards, but also at the medical center. So our request again is a 5% standard rate. And just for context, which you are fully aware, this is really our proposed first increase in 5 years. And during that time, inflation has been over 20%. That we have managed through this. I would also add, it's not on this slide, but during that time on the Lawrence Edwards campuses, we've introduced cuts of over $42 million, and at the medical center, almost $9 million during that period of time. So that we don't come into this as a year standing alone. We really come into this in a context of where we've been for the last 4 years coming into it. To really meet our increased costs going forward, we would need to actually ask for a 6.7% increase on the Lawrence Edwards campus and 11.9% increase at the medical center if we were going to break even, if you will, coming into this next year. So we just didn't feel like those numbers were appropriate or manageable, and we think we can manage with our request at 5%, recognizing that it does still create some shortfalls. At the medical center, obviously the costs, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this. You all know it. Inflation is really the biggest one, and increasing salaries for our ability to recruit and retain our best people are really two key drivers. Obviously, there are some additional ones as well. On the Lawrence and Edwards campus, we were, as we've been talking about in the past, we have a structural deficit that we're managing through. We still have a plan for that and continue to have a plan for that. This 5% would allow us to execute on that plan more fully. What you see here in the graph is really our cash carry forwards year to year. And you can see we're spending down some cash to make the investments in our initiatives that are critical to our success. And we believe with this rate increase that will allow us to accomplish that and then move us back in the right direction in a couple of years here. So we think this is sufficient to help us through this process and will be critical. Just to show you the counter of if we decide not to do this, which frankly adds $12 million to our structural deficit, and our cash looks a whole lot like this if we were to go that direction. So we think this is really imperative to the university to be able to continue to maintain our strategic plan going forward. This still puts us for really squarely in the middle of where our peers are. This is the peer set for KBOR that we have. You can see we do jump beyond Indiana, Bloomington by all of 200 about $200, a little less than $200. But again, does not significantly change where we are relative to our peers. Obviously, everybody's dealing with the same challenges that we are. And these are, not all of these are actually updated numbers either. I assume several of them are considering tuition changes as well. But it still keeps us nice squarely in the middle. The fee request for nursing anesthesia program is really to address our ability to recruit and retain faculty. Obviously, demand for clinical people has gone through the roof, as have salaries, and our ability to retain our faculty is really the genesis of this request. You can see that still puts us in this graph on the right. We are the lowest price program really in the entire Midwest. And will remain so after this fee goes into place. And that cost there is for the entire program, the entire doctorate program. So we still remain quite competitive despite this increased fee, but we really have to have it to be able to pay the faculty or keep our faculty in place. The student governance went through an exhaustive process to come up with their fee request. I thought did a brilliant job of trying to really balance cost versus need and services. And I know you received a comprehensive presentation of that earlier. This is just a breakdown of that, but again, it ends up being a $14.45 increase overall, which is just under 3%, 2.9%. And again, extremely well thought out and flushed out and hundreds of hours of work going into that request. So congratulate them on that. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions.
All right, we have the chancellor and I know several team members here also that can answer specific questions. Any questions or comments from the board? Looking at K's, and we'll go through these one at a time and ask questions. So any questions for the chancellor or his team?
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chancellor.
Thanks for my team for being here. Appreciate it.
All right. K-State University, President Linton.
Thank you, new Mr. Chair, Mr. New Vice Chair. Congratulations to you both. I should have also probably recognized one other person that's here in the audience with us today, our former Vice President of Student Government, Jeff Ebeck, who just graduated at Kansas State with an economics and finance degree. He also had the role of being official driver of the president for all of the community visits this past year. So Jeff, if you could please stand so we can recognize you. He had so much fun that he's going to continue to be the driver for the next year and continue with the community visits. I also wanted to thank my CFO, COO for the work that's been done over the last year or so, trying to be able to come to the right number and the right value about what Kansas State University is going to need relative to resources and moving us forward. In our proposal, we have 3 requests. The first is a 5% rate increase for tuition across all 3 of our physical campuses, the Manhattan campus, the Salina campus, the Olathe campus, and also for online programming. And this would both be for undergrad programs and graduate programs that are in-state and out-of-state. We're also requesting a 3% rate increase for residents and non-residents for the College of Veterinary Medicine and a 2% student service fee on the Manhattan campus that would only apply to our on-campus degree programs. Part of the rationale for the need for additional funding is shown here on this slide. You'll see this is the HEPA data over the last several years, which shows where we are relative to the inflationary increase for the cost of higher education. And if you look at the last part of that figure, you'll see that there's a great gap between where we are and the resources that we have and the needs that we have relative to simply inflationary costs over time. To give you a perspective of our targeted investment areas to show you how we would utilize these funds in moving forward, a big part of us moving forward in the budget for next year is faculty and staff compensation. Our faculty are approximately 14% below the bar relative to our peer institutions, especially peer land grant institutions. Part of that funding for the raise would come from the state general fund, and we're putting an additional 2.5% in that's going to be merit-based to make a total of a 3.75 increase in salaries for both faculty and staff. Additional funding will be used to be able to support enrollment management, academic programming, the NIST playbook, and additional dollars for strategic plan implementation and operational excellence to be able to get support and support services for things like communications, information technology, the business office, and human capital services. We also have enhanced cost relative to operation. You'll see almost $1 million more anticipated for next year for costs associated with things like increased insurance premiums and utility costs. One of the things that we did when we were trying to evaluate what that number should be relative to a tuition increase, the calculated value was a 5.7% increase. And then we went back to the team to be able to answer the question, does this still make us marketable? And can we compete with our regional peers in the region? And you'll see here, this shows with a 5% increase, we're still very competitive compared to our peers in the region. We fall right in between University of Kansas and Wichita State, but very competitive with our land-grant institution peers, Missouri, Oklahoma State, University of Nebraska, and the University of Arkansas. Had we exceeded 5%, we felt like that we would not be within market and not be as competitive as we needed to be able to have the goal to be able to enhance enrollment at Kansas State. Relative to students, so there was a unanimously positive vote from the students for an increase in student fee of 2%. And like Kansas University, our main goal here is around supporting mental health. And I think all of you know the issues and challenges associated with mental health. A little over a third of our students reported actually having student services associated with student mental health challenges. And you'll see just in the last year, a 19% increase in unique clients over the past year. So with that additional need, there needs to be additional support. The support will be used to be able to fund market salary increases in staff, ensure that they're accredited and properly licensed, and help to be able to fill two important staffing shortages with a master's level clinician and a doctoral level psychologist. So with that, that's our proposal. I'll stand for any questions that you might have.
Questions or comments for President Linton or his team? Regent Ice.
Just an adjacent issue, when Ethan presented to fiscal affairs, he mentioned that the strategic plan that the money is seated for should be available in the August, September timeframe. So that's when all of us would see the elements of that plan.
Yeah, the launch date for the strategic plan that we're forecasting is September the 8th. Thank you.
Any other questions for President Linton or comments? All right, thank you, President Linton. Appreciate that. Wichita State University, President Muma.
Thank you, Regent Roth. You have two handouts there, one that's over tuition fees and also the student handout, if you want to follow along there. I'd also like to thank our team, Vice President for Administration Finance, Warren Goling, and his Budget Director, David Miller, who are here today. And there's lots of other folks on our campus, like others, that are working on this diligently every day. Let's see. Right. We are requesting a 5.9% increase. If you look at this slide, you'll see that over the last several years, we've really been trying to hold tuition flat. If you look at the last 5 years, even with this 5.9% increase, it averages out to 1.7% increase. This has been fully vetted across campus. We don't take it lightly when we have to increase tuition, particularly our student body and the needs that they have. But the students in various different ways and groups have all said that they support this at this point. Our faculty and staff senates as well. We've had conversations with them and they understand why we're moving in this direction. And it really is to make sure that we continue to move forward on our priorities of supporting access to higher education, feeding the talent pipeline, and increasing economic prosperity. We're also, with this increase, investing in SIM and the work that is required there. Inflationary costs, as all of us are working towards, and investment in people. This still keeps us the lowest in our peer group and in our competitive group of research institutions that our students view us in. So we feel pretty confident that we're still in a good area with this 5.9% increase. I want to just point out this too, all along for the last several years, but especially since I've been president, we've been focusing on reinvesting resources the state's already given us and reallocating towards enrollment management, particularly scholarships. And you can see that spending there in that particular slide. And we're investing over 10% of our tuition revenues in that area. And that is one of the reasons why we're growing, and even this increase of 5.9%, we're still making sure that we're providing need-based aid for those students who have that extra need to come to school and be successful. Just so you can get an understanding of the additional revenues that we're looking at here, basically 4 areas, what we're getting from the state in terms of salary, the tuition increase, but also increased revenues from our enrollment growth, and then targeted SGF support that we received this year. You can see there that on this slide that we, like other institutions, are getting 2.5% salary increase and a fringe benefit increase associated with that, and that amounts to $2 million. So we're planning for across the board 2.5 increase. But additional from the tuition increase, we are going to use some of those dollars to continue our market-based compensation plan that we started last year. And you can see there that that's an additional $2 million, but also promotions and academic rank and tenure, increasing our support for GTA funding, particularly in programs that have increased growth. Institutional scholarships as well, additional support there. And then we have some facility operating cost increases, particularly in utilities as our campus has expanded. The capital assessment that we are all are invested in. And then some additional dollars that we're going to invest in student recruitment and retention. And then in terms of our additional support that we'll get from our tuition revenues that have come in from our increased enrollment, we're going to utilize that for IT, cybersecurity services, additional research support, and we have some reductions in reallocations as well. Our debt service for our Shocker Success Center came in a lot less than we were expecting. We started a nursing program on the K-State campus, and those expenditures have come in less as well. So in case you're wondering if you can have those, we're going to keep those savings, Rich. And then targeted support, we all receive need-based aid, $4.2 million came to Wichita State. We've already allocated that for incoming students this fall to Pell eligible students. And then Health Science Center education funding for SGF one-time support. We'll go to that project. And then, of course, the NIST funding that you all have supported. In terms of our mandatory fees, so that was tuition. On the mandatory fees side, the students have worked really hard this past year to keep that at a minimum. They did come in with a 2.9% increase for the infrastructure and support fee, as well as student support services. And I don't believe there's there's no increase in the technology and transportation fee. We do have a few college fees. Our PA program, like a lot of clinical programs in the state, are struggling with clinical rotations. In that profession, it's been decided that that we need to start paying clinical sites for students to rotate at those sites. And so students are going to be charged $1,000 per clinical rotation. That's been fully vetted in that program. Even with that increase, I know that sounds like a lot. Even with that increase, we are still by far the cheapest PA program in our region. Fairmont College of Liberal Arts and Sciences has a small increase in their fee, about 46 cents per credit hour, to help support GTA support, particularly in programs that are growing. Same sort of thing in College of Engineering, and the Barton School is also increasing their fee. All the other college fees are going to remain the same. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for President Muma or his team at Wichita State? All right, thank you, President Muma. Next up, Fort Hays State, President Mason.
I don't have a PowerPoint, so I guess that's a holder. I also wanted to thank our team, which puts together our budget. That includes our senior leadership team, representatives from our Student Government Association, our Staff Senate, and our Faculty Senate. Once we have our recommendation, I fully go to the complete Student Government Association to discuss the budget and receive their full support. Fort Hays State University is seeking a tuition rate increase of $9.68 per credit hour for the in-state undergraduate rate in combination with the same percentage across all other tuition rates. In partnership with our Student Government Association, we are reducing the on-campus student fee by $3.34 for a net total increase in tuition and fees of $6.34 per credit hour. This means that for the next academic year, our in-state undergraduate students will pay $5,634 in tuition and fees, which, by the way, is less than any of the KBOR approved rates for the current academic year. And you may recall last year when I was here, when we couldn't raise our rates, I had indicated that had we been able to, with the proposal, our tuition and fees would have been less than $1,000 more than any of other Regent institutions or our peers, even if we raised and they did not. Right now, we're talking less than $200 a year. Additionally, our international student fee will remain flat. Online Fort Hays State University students have never paid fees, and we do not plan to change that practice. We continue to focus on our high value propositions strategically aligned with Pillar 1 of the Kansas Board of Regents strategic plan. Also want to talk a little bit about two other things that we have in our proposal. We are seeking a differential tuition for our master's degree in counseling. Our program received high praise through the accreditation process for both school and clinical mental health counseling. The Council for Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs caps enrollment at 12 students per class, which drives cost. Based on our wait list numbers, market demand, and market price data, we requested a differential tuition of $330 per credit hour. And finally, we are seeking expansion of our employee tuition assistance waiver program. Why? Because we're an educational institution that espouses a core value of knowledge and scholarship, and we think this is important. On delivering on this core value, we're seeking permission to eliminate any waiting period as well as shared cost. Thus, the program would become available to benefits eligible employees immediately upon hire at 100% of tuition. And additionally, it is our intent for value alignment to also extend a similar opportunity to the employees of our foundation and our alumni staff utilizing waivers. Thank you for your consideration.
Questions or comments for President Mason or her team? Yes, Region Winner. Oh, can you turn on your microphone for those listening online? Thank you, sir.
I may have missed it. What's the percentage increase that you're proposing?
Oh, you didn't miss it. I don't say it. It is 7%, but when you net it out, we are talking about $6.34 per credit hour.
$6 sounds easier than 7.
Yeah, and that's where percents can get off. We have such an affordable tuition structure at Fort Hays State that it's good to look at those round numbers.
Thank you for the acknowledgement.
Yeah. Other questions or comments for President Mason? Okay, thank you very much. Next up, Emporia State University, President Hush.
Thank you. Like the others have mentioned, Chair, Vice Chair, congratulations. Thank you for your leadership. That said, the entire board, thank you for what you've done this last year and will be doing forward. Thank you. As everyone is aware, we have a large leadership team at Emporia State University. Two key leaders for this process have been our ASG president, Bella Price, and just wanted to say thank you, Bella, as well as she is a member of our leadership team uniquely, and she's contributed a lot this year. Diana Coleman is our Vice President of Finance and Administration, who has also led this process to be consistent with what was presented with Fiscal Affairs and the Audit Committee. I'd like to turn it over to Diana Coleman.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. We'll dive right in. The highlights for here we go. For our proposal, we are requesting a 5% tuition increase for all categories of students. If you look in the tuition proposal packet, I believe our information begins on page 72, and on page 78 lays out the tables of how this affects every category of students. Remembering also that this time last year, you all approved non-resident waivers. So all those students coming to ESU in the lower 48 will be paying the same low rate that will be subject to this tuition increase. The tuition increase will be targeted, as you've heard before, mainly at inflationary increases. At Emporia State, this will generate less than $1 million. And the inflationary increases that we are facing are around there. But if you look at page 80 or appendix F1 in the materials as you get time, you will see there is a litany of initiatives that we are undertaking. And we have been very fortunate this legislative session to also have some solid funding come to us, both in ongoing and one-time money that will help us as we navigate the transformation that we have begun this last year to improve the quality of our programs and bring in more students. We know it's an uphill climb with the enrollment cliff coming. And we also know that even going into next year with this tuition increase that we will be facing lower enrollments. So it is necessary for this increase alongside those other resources to take some pressure off of our reserves and help us to continue to invest in the programs and the necessary expenses to provide our students with the services and programs that they so much deserve. Alongside that, we're requesting a 4.7% in campus activity fees. This supports a lot of those services that I just alluded to in general, like our student health center, our student counseling, athletics, our Memorial Union, our student rec center, and about 13 different ASG line items of other programs that they support through their process. So altogether, it will be about $11.50 per credit hour increase for our on-campus students, undergraduate students. We have, out of the last 5 years, had 3 years with no tuition increases, and the other 2 years were quite modest at about 2.5%. The students were very participant in this process, and those of you who sat on Fiscal Affairs and Audit heard Bella Price, our ASG president, say this morning what the student role is, and that they were supportive of this and actually came forward with a higher tuition increase than what we're proposing to you today. But trying to stay competitive and not put that much more burden on the students is what brought our presentation to you today. The next slide, even with these increases, will show that Emporia State still stays very competitive with our designated and aspirational peers. Even before the increases, Emporia State is at the lowest combined undergraduate rate of all of our peers. And our numbers reflect our fiscal year 24-20 request. And the rest of them are still consistent with last year's rates, and we are still at the bottom. More close to home are more main competitors in the MIAA. We were positioned second prior to the proposed increases, and we remain second from the bottom, even with the proposed increases. So we feel like this will not hurt the competition, and it keeps us still at a very good value. And just a couple other little pieces of the proposal that are woven into the narrative. We have requests in there for our distance education area fee, which is the complement for our online students to what the campus activity fee is for our on-campus students. That would go up $2.71 per credit hour. There's also another complement to the increase that the Student Rec Center is requesting in the activity fee for our students. And this is the membership fees for our faculty, our staff, our alum, and other members to keep those rates congruent to support those operations. And last but not least, the thing that's most favored on campuses is parking permits, fines, and fees. We've not had any increases since 2004 and 2007 respectively. I gave Bella credit this morning. The students really grilled the parking committee. They had to come back to the committee multiple times and talk about the increases and why they were necessary. And but unanimously, our tuition and fees advisory committee did sign off on the proposal that we've moved forward to you. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Questions for the Emporia State team? Comments? All right, thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Pittsburgh State University, President Ship.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, fellow regents, thanks for a little time today to talk through this. You know, it's always good, right, to keep the lead singers the same, right? Bands get into trouble when you start changing lead singers. So congratulations to both of you for staying in that. That's important. So we can laugh about that, right? Okay, yeah, good.
Freebird,
I know.
that's ready to go, but
Freebird, right? Who's singing that? I want to hear that. So we are requesting a 4.9% tuition and fee increase. And before I get into kind of the rationale with that, I really want to thank our CFO, Doug Ball. Doug behind me has been for a new person in my role, he's been a real rock and has been an excellent partner. He's worked with our tuition and fees committee on campus. So we don't take lightly bringing a tuition and fee increase forward, but the recommendation from the committee to me was 4.9%. Taryn Brenner, Taryn, are you still here? Where's Taryn? She had to skedaddle. Well, I want to give props to her as well because she worked with our students and student government to also support and bring this forward to you today. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that good work that's gone into this, no different than our peers. So when you look at this, you can look at our MIAA, again, very similar comparables, and our cable peers, and what you see is we're toward the bottom. This is not going to get us out of an alignment at all, but this is a critical adjustment that we need to make, especially when you begin to look at, I think similar to others as well, is that we really haven't adjusted tuition and fees throughout the last 5 years. And so this would, on average, put us at a 1.5% adjustment, which is of course well below inflation. And I think the good news that we should talk about is a lot of the dollars would be invested right back in students that are most impacted by any adjustments to tuition and fees. So I think that's important to talk about. You'll notice the good news is the green lights there, right? We received some additional state funding. That's important. The NIST playbook, which is really, I think for all of us, good news. That was very welcome from the state that they supported that, because that gets right into the purpose of what we all do every day, is helping more students complete their certificates, credentials, degrees, and get out into the workforce in the state of Kansas. So that's really important. And then, of course, the inflation impacts that we're all grappling with and the salary actions that we'll take. I think important to note that, a 4.9%, 5% increase doesn't get us all the way home. If we were to look at kind of the proverbial break-even point for us, that would be about a 9% tuition and fee increase, even with the green light good news there that you see. So, but we felt, right, that's a bridge too far. Certainly don't want to take that big of a jump. So we're going to have to be scrappy in some redistribution and some budget reductions in certain areas to make this work. But we're confident we can. Okay, this is what it looks like kind of on the ground, right? What does that look like per semester? $146. And if you're thinking of tuition and then the fees is $45, total $191 for undergraduates. With our graduates, it's a comparable. So these adjustments that will be made, again, still keeps us in that very bottom tier of our MIAA and our aspirational peer comparables. You know, the key investments that I think we talked about with our tuition and fees committee that they're excited about is that additional dollars for financial aid. Certainly all of the when we say NIST playbook too, I think sometimes we don't, what is that exactly? Well, it's really great on our campus. It gets into a centralized, professionalized academic and career advising center. So we've started those investments. So this is really important to supporting student success all the way to completion. So you can see salaries, the adjustments that we're going to make, that we're working with our faculty and staff on right now. Student recruiting, this will be additional dollars to make sure that we're recruiting not only in the state, but certainly within our 4-state region. We need to be competitive, and this is going to allow us to do that. Financial aid and SIS platforms, like many of our peers, certainly we have upgrades to make, and this will help with that. And then dealing with the inflationary issues that we're all facing. So we're going to be working on it still requires a $2 million in budget reductions and reallocations, but again, we're confident we can do that. Kind of last point here, some key initiatives that are important. We're trying to really simplify things at Pitt State. As you know, we have a 32-state residential tuition rate. We're going to be adjusting that also for our graduate programs. So that's important that we do that. We've looked at it. Doug and I had a really good conversation, and there's really minimal impact because we don't have a lot of students in our graduate programs that are coming from those 32 states. So it becomes a target of opportunity. And then the College of Technology, we've revised and consolidated the fees there into a safety and support fee. Our College of Technology course delivery is 40% higher. I don't think that'll be a surprise for a lot of the academic programs in that college, and we're adjusting these fees to help us cost recover in those areas so that we can still offer those same great programs. And there you go. So that gets us through. I moved through that pretty quick, so I'll stand for questions if anyone has them.
Questions or comments for President Shipp or his team? Yes, Regent Kibner.
Just one quick question. I didn't hear you mention, I just want to be sure it still applies. You'll still have your flat rate tuition.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Thank you, President Shipp.
I'm taking VIP riders. We're riding out tomorrow at 7:30. Dr. Flanders, are you coming?
We got a meeting.
Okay. Oh, see, there we go.
I would, but we have a meeting.
We have a
Do
meeting.
you have one of those little sidecars we can ride in?
You do it.
Yeah, or one of those little yellow trailers that my 3-year-old sits in? Before we break, I want to just ask Regent Ice again as chair of fiscal if there's any summary comments as we consider this over the next month before making decisions in June.
I'll make a couple if that's appropriate. As you said earlier, I believe the Fiscal Affairs Committee spent with a very focused deep dive, and we went through a lot of information. So I think you all should take that as an important step. The things that ran through all the presentations, just to restate what you just heard, was first of all, if you just took a look at expense levels and you just took a look at inflation, everyone would have had a higher increase than has been recommended, especially when you think about a multi-year time frame and the inflationary impact over all those years. And so probably in total, we're talking about a 1.3, 1.45% compounded rate compared to an inflationary time that, many times that. But everyone didn't do that. I think they did consider our pillar about affordability and access, and that's why the recommendations were what they are. And I think you heard several people make comments about how scholarships and aid can also help with that affordability. I think that's an important add as well. One of the things that we didn't talk about as much here, but the committee spent a lot of time on, was the enrollment assumptions. And I think in large part, we should be comfortable with where they are. we don't want any of them to be so aggressive that everything has to go perfectly every day. But we also don't want them so easy, we make decisions that are not right for where we'll wind up. And I do think, you know, that's where we are. I think all the members asked that in their own ways at different times. And then lastly, it was clear in this presentation, but what we're saying again, the students have become more and more and more involved. And not only did they work the student fee part hard, but also each of them commented that they had been engaged in one way or another about tuition increases, and we're supportive of that, which I think we should feel great about the students thinking so broadly, and all the help they've given us there. Let's see if any of the committee has anything to add to that.
Regent Winter.
Thank you.
Microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of us who were on the fiscal affairs this morning and sitting in, I apologize because I'm basically going to try to recap some of my comments there. You know, from a big picture standpoint, one might ask, why would we spend more in our system when we have fewer students? And that's a legitimate question. It's a legitimate question for us. It's a legitimate question for the legislature, et cetera, et cetera. So I know in some business concepts, a standard response to fewer customers, less revenue is to cut. So some might say, what are you doing talking about increasing cost for your customers? Well, I think that means we have two choices. We can cut spending, hunker down, or we can, on the other hand, be more positive, more aggressive, more assertive, and have a plan to address some of these things, particularly with respect to NIST. And I know this may not mean significant increases. It may mean just holding our own. But it's important, I think, in this context to remind ourselves that we do have a commitment to NIST and that there's evidence that it's worked. So it seems to me that we also need to think about who are our other constituencies and what might they be thinking so that we don't get too far ahead or behind them. And those four constituencies to me are, number one, students and parents. What do they think? And the evidence this morning was overwhelming. The students and all the institutions were positive, supportive, and I think that's really important to understand. Secondly, what's the governor think? Well, we know from the governor's budget that she was quite positive about the future of higher education in Kansas. And in fact, the legislature didn't fund all of what she wanted. So we know the governor is supportive of this kind of positive approach. Third, what's the legislature think? And while it's true that the legislature didn't fund everything, they were very positive as well. They did some systemic things. They helped us fund NIST, and certainly they did some special things for some of the smaller institutions to help out. So I think there's great evidence that the legislature is positive about the future of higher education in Kansas. And finally, what about the private sector? What about donors? How are they behaving? Well, in Emporia, President Hush, yesterday you announced a $5 million private grant, and that's happening, I think, all over the state and all over our universities with our private donors. They're being very positive and very supportive. So all four of those indicators, pieces of evidence, if you will, suggest to me that we need to support that positive approach as well, and take the approach that we're not just going to cut, but we're going to be proactive and assertive. You know, somebody once told me, you can't cut your way to greatness. And I think that none of us in Kansas are happy with mediocrity. We always want to get better. And so I think clearly the answer is no. Just because we have fewer students in the system, we're not cutting. We're not going backwards. We are going to fund those initiatives that we've already designed, that we have good evidence that are going to work. So that's my at least my tentative opinion about this. I want to congratulate all the institutions for the quality presentations you made this morning.
Thank you, Regent Winter. Other questions, comment, Regent Harrison Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to just, as a member of the Finance and Audit Committee, just commend the CEOs, the CFOs, and the students. I mean, I view this approach as kind of like a three-legged stool, all very important. Those three components are very important to the success. Last year, the board asked for some additional information, asked that we change the way this was presented and make sure that we received insight on how the funds were going to be used. And I think the response has been tremendous this year. We really got very thorough presentations, and it was very enlightening to be able to have the students present. I know we didn't have an opportunity to have that in our board meeting, but we had students present and they did a fabulous job. And so just kudos to all the universities and everybody who was part of this presentation this year.
Regent Harrison Lee. Other comments, Regent Lane?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I won't repeat Regent Harrison Lee's comments, but yes, thank you very much for the quality work, thorough presentations. We've made a lot of assumptions here that our enrollment is going down. I think it'd be helpful by campus if you could share just your projected numbers, not today, but in the future. I know right now they're just projected, but it would be helpful to see how we're trending.
Right. Other questions or comments? Yes, Regent Kiblinger.
Just one more, and I again appreciate all the work. I appreciate the thoughtfulness of what's gone into these presentations. I know that a lot of the comparisons on how our tuition stacks up against peer institutions are based on the assumption that those other institutions will stay the same, which in fact they won't. It would be really interesting to see an update once everything is settled across the nation to know in sooner rather than later where we come in terms of affordability, because I wouldn't be surprised to find that some of our institutions at least have actually made some gains in affordability compared to their peers.
I see President Flanders writing that down. So I think we'll see that. Thank you. Other questions or comments? I'd just like to thank Fiscal Affairs. I feel like we're always trying to improve our processes. I think most evidence with students and expanding the conversations. We've seen the fruit of that. I think also as we've tried to expand our outlook with the universities and communication all through the year, it sets us up for probably a more balanced approach as we come into this and less surprises. We've talked through assumptions and looked back and forth all through the year. So I just want to commend the committee and the universities for doing a good job communicating back and forth all through the year as it leads up into this moment that there should be few surprises. So thank you all very much for your hard work and dedication in that effort. And with that, we are going to take a an 8-minute break. We'll reconvene at 3:15.
So Regent, our Chair Rolfe has had some other personal issues come up, so he's had to leave even earlier than he thought he was going to. So I'll be a pale shadow of that. I know. Well, it didn't work to talk, so I tried to. Early's on time is late, late's not good. What's that? Yeah, I'm not singing. He said 8 minutes, be here at 3:15. It's not 3:20. Yes, well, yeah. You can, there's some things you can just count on, right? I'd go ahead and start without everybody, except it requires Regent Kiblinger, so she's not in here. Like somebody's gonna have to go out and roust everybody. You called, you. Hey, here we go. Okay. So John actually has had another matter come up and has already had to leave. So he asked me to do my best as a pale shadow of his chairmanship. So we'll resume the agenda after having taken B1 first in the discussion agenda. I think we are now at the concurrent/dual enrollment report. Regent Kiblinger. I think you're up.
I'm actually listed on the agenda for this, but
Oh.
I'm not the expert. Dr. Carla Wiscombe is our resident expert on this, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
All right, so if this were hockey, it would have been a dual assist. Regent Daniel Archer to, well, thank you.
And I think all of you have a copy of the PowerPoint. Just as some background information, this report has somewhat evolved over the years. It started when I first started doing this report, it was concurrent students and the number of credit hours. So over the years, we've had regents ask us for different information and different people. We usually don't present this to the board. We just present it to Basque. But today, the high school enrollment report includes concurrent enrollment, dual enrollment, and career and technical education courses. And the outline on page 59 of your board package just kind of gives a background on that, of what those definitions. The difference between concurrent and dual is actually just who's teaching it. Concurrent, it's the high school teacher teaching the course, and dual, it's actual institution faculty teaching that, whether it's online at their campus. Sometimes the institutional faculty will actually go to the high school or wherever the high schoolers are taking the course, but that's the main difference. The data is from all 32 of our institutions. They put this information in. And the one thing that I would like to stress today, and I'm not very good at a clicker, I can talk, but I can't click at the same time. So I want to thank Judd McCormick and his team, Cindy Ferrier. They are the ones that put all of this information out on the website. This has been there for probably 4 to 5 months. What I did was pull the information from Key Stats to put it into a summary for all of you. So if you're interested in seeing more of the data, you can go out to Key Stats on our website. And this is where I look for my stuff on the website, is at the the high school. There's lots of enrollment information, but I look at the high school information for the concurrent and the dual information in CTE. So this page, let's go back 10 years. In AY 2013, 22,720 students were taking courses at our institutions. So this was a 6-year trend from 2013 to 2018. And if we look at it today, this is the most recent 6-year trend where we have 33,520 students that took either a concurrent course, a dual course, or CTE at our institutions. Now, the tricky part is doing the, this is unduplicated. If you look at the title, this is unduplicated by institution. Some students actually take a CTE course and a concurrent course and a dual all at the same time, but it's unduplicated by institution. So our institutions have touched this many students on their campuses. So these are the sectors that are providing the courses, depending on the mission. So like our community colleges are providing a lot of these courses because they offer technical, they offer concurrent, and they offer dual. So depending on the mission of the institution will determine what courses are offered for our students in Kansas. So now I'm going to look at each of our sectors. So this is the universities, and they provided a total together, Washburn and our state universities, of around 8% of the courses for our students. Community colleges, 69%. This is just the pie graph in the details. And then our technical colleges, 26% of the courses. This is a breakdown of the head count, the percentages of our head count based on the race and ethnicity groups of our students. The white group have declined, and the other groups have maybe grown like 1 to 2% to take away the percentage of the white students that are taking the courses. And this is the head count by race and ethnicity, which is pretty reflective of the previous slide too. See the numbers. This information's on our website. I'm going through it fast. There are a ton of numbers, but I encourage you to look at the reports on our website. Lake's still studying, or you want me to? Okay, I don't want to move. Okay, so the next slide is the credit hours. So if you take a look at the credit hours that these 33,000 students have earned in the last years, it's pretty exciting. To me, it looks like we're doing a fairly good job of students earning quite a few college hours before they leave high school. And we talked about the dip after COVID. Everyone talks about COVID, post-COVID, but I think it was Provost Arnsdorf said that they had trouble getting HLC qualified teachers. A lot of teachers retired after COVID, and I know that to be true, that people, it just taxed them. So the people that had the masters and had been teaching a long time, a lot of those are the ones that retired after COVID or during COVID. Again, this is the percentage of credit hours for the race and ethnicity, and it very closely mirrors the same information for the head count. And these are the credit hours earned by each race and ethnicity group. So the last slide that I'll show you on this one is what our students are doing. How well are the students that took these courses in high school? How are they doing after high school graduation? So the column at the right is the total success index, and that is they either completed or they are retained at one of our institutions or at another institution. So there's 6 little groups that, not little groups, but 6 groups that make up that percentage on the right. And that's a pretty high percentage of retention and completion rate for these students. And if you think about the types of students that are taking the initiative to take these types of courses, that matches pretty much the expectation. So another part of the report, this is part one. Part two looks like this, and the numbers are too small, but I like to look at our entire system when I'm looking at the numbers. So this is also on our website. So on this report, it gives, again, the background, but it just goes through concurrent. These are the numbers by institution, head count for concurrent. Are you with me?
I think so.
Okay. So
I do have a question though. How many, you said 33,000 unique students. What percentage would that be of high school students?
that's a really good
Is
question.
that coming?
Well, Regent Benson asked me that earlier during the basque, and
I'm
so
not as fast as him.
well, this is his second time, but he asked that there. And I had to do some homework because I had to go and look at the high school enrollment for Kansas. So when I looked at AY 22 enrollment, I looked at the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and there were 106,000 students that were in those courses. That's what's expected. There are some freshmen who can take these courses gifted, so there might be a little bit off on the numbers, but when I take the unduplicated student numbers, by that, it's about 29%.
Thank you.
So roughly 30% of our high school students are taking college courses. That's a long answer for a short question.
No, that was
so.
great. Thank you very much.
So then the next page is credit hours. A lot of times we want to know how many are doing it and then what are they getting, the credit hours. And I did that for all three, the concurrent group, the dual group, and then the CTE group. And I don't have this on the overhead. So we're looking at this page, the short one. So lots of students. Again, there's a lot of duplication because students can take concurrent at the same time they're taking a CTE, and sometimes the CTE courses are offered by the high school. So there's actually double dipping there, if you will. But questions? Lots of numbers. And
Elaine.
the thing I want to stress is this information is out there all the time. I'm just providing a summary of the work that our data research and planning unit have out on our website all the time.
Thank you for doing that. And it does look like we've got at least one question. Regional Ange, you have something?
Well, Dr. Wiscombe probably tires of my questions, but these are things I haven't already asked Carla. But first of all, board, Carla is an invaluable resource. She's been working hand in glove with the Diploma Plus dual and concurrent think tank, and is part of the team that will be bringing recommendations for closing the equity gap. So Carla, as you think about what's the data, what stands out for you as a person who's had time to analyze the data as most critical point for us to focus on?
Well, one of the things that when I realized that only 29% of our students in our high schools are participating in these, I feel like that's a goal that we can go after. And you've heard me say this before, access. Students can't access the course if the high school and the institution doesn't offer it. And I think there's a real discrepancy between how many courses are offered and which high schools are actually offering those courses. And like you said earlier, Education Commission of States, a lot of states require their high schools to offer 2 gen ed courses and 2 CTE courses so that everybody, at least we have that option. You can't take a course if it's not offered.
Right. So I know that Dr. Flanders, last year you worked with the state board and we've signed an agreement to offer courses. Do we know how that's progressing? And the second part of that is, are students getting actual credit at the high school level for taking these courses?
Yeah, so what, I know the agreement we worked on last year that the state board did move forward was an agreement, it was something I discovered, an agreement that the credit that the students completed, no matter which post-secondary institution they utilized, would count towards graduation. And towards graduation for the course of its equivalency. In other words, to give you an example, we had a situation where I'm a high school in, I'm going to make up a city, Topeka, and I have an agreement with perhaps the local university, and if they take English from the local university, it counts as English Comp 1, but if they went to the university in Lawrence, it would count as an elective. It does count for credit in both cases, but as all of our community college partners know, and as all of our universities know, elective credit is very different than credit that counts for the course. So I believe they passed that policy in an encouragement mode, not a mandate mode, but they did, that did move forward. I think as Regent Rolfe and Regent Ice and I have met with their board leadership, we're considering how can we have high schools offer at least some credit for students. We've, you know, the issue with, and we talked about the AP credit, which is valuable to some students who are going out of state or perhaps even attending elite colleges. And we do a lot of work with AP here to make sure those credits are uniformly awarded throughout the system. Fact of the matter is, many of the students that take AP credit courses never even set for the final AP exam. It is a high stakes, one test. You get credit or no credit. And as opposed to enrolling in a college course where you're going to be assessed the entire way, and the assessment is not so high stakes at the end. So I personally see our institutions offering college credit to high school students as an advantage for most students, for many students, over the AP pathway.
Regent Lane, if I may add one more, just analysis that I've had after working with some of the superintendents and stuff on the Kansas First or Kansas Diploma, Kansas, whatever it is. The inconsistencies between the pay that the teachers receive from the high school and then the rate that the students are charged to. There's a real wide range of pay for the teachers and the tuition rate for our high school students.
Sure.
Carla, it's exciting to see that the technical colleges are offering gen ed courses as well. Are they selecting the courses to offer from our system-wide transfer package or?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any more questions?
I got, just trying to figure or learn what you're showing us here when we do the 1 and 5 year change.
Mhm.
What would you like us to take from that? Because I look out in a few years when we talk about the enrollment cliff and the fewer number of high school students, we're going to see a 5 year change that's going to drop off the
Right.
cliff.
Right.
Is that something we're alarmed at? We're excited now with the numbers and increasing, but all of a sudden they're gonna fall off the cliff soon?
And I think that that's something that we all have to keep in mind, especially even after COVID, we saw a drop in numbers. So we just have to keep all of that information in mind. I think what we need to look at is the percentage of the different ethnicity groups that are participating in these opportunities throughout the state. And hopefully those groups will grow or at least be a little more comparable.
All right, well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so Daniel, are you up on this one or is this, okay, all right. Performance funding and math reform?
So.
That put us in a position to move the needle on the strategic plan here. So We noted back then in November that we needed some additional time to work with the Dana Center, which is at the University of Texas in Austin, and they're providing a lot of technical assistance on this, as well as with our math task force, which is primarily comprised of math faculty in our state here. And so we've worked on a timeline for this. We have a proposed timeline for your consideration. We also have proposed policy amendments to make sure that we have sustainability going forward, to make sure that we have a modern day remediation strategy. It's really based on research-based best practices. So this is the structure here we're looking at. So funding is solely based on participation. So if you participate in all 5 projects and meet basic standards, you get 100% funding. If you participate in 4 projects and meet basic standards on those 4 projects, you get 80%. If you participate in 3 and meet basic standards on 3 projects, you get 60%, and so on and so forth. And so that's relatively straightforward. This is, again, going back to the strategic plan. All of these practices put us in a position to move the needle on access, success, completion, on-time completion, affordability, and reducing equity gaps for a variety of groups. I do want to re-highlight the projects here, just so you have kind of an idea of what we're going to be working on. This is obviously going to be something we're going to be focusing on strategically the next several years. The first big piece is math pathways. And this is really what math pathways looks like for the vast majority of students in our system today. We have this wide lane that we send the majority of students down here. So there are some exceptions to this, but most roads really do lead through college algebra. When you look at the data, the vast majority of students in our system are taking college algebra. And just to provide some background on this, college algebra, as I've noted before, is created to prepare students for calculus. And the reality is that only about 20% of majors require calculus. So despite the fact that most majors do not require calculus, the vast majority of students are still taking it. You'll see it's the 3rd highest enrolled course in our system. So again, this is really what the default pathway is for the vast majority of students, is college algebra. And so really at the heart of math pathways, the goal was to restructure this, refine it, narrow it, and concentrate it down to those majors that ultimately require calculus here. That's really what this framework is about. Is college algebra is primarily for majors that have a calculus requirement. And so there are other math course options to provide more relevant math skills for the majority of majors in our system that are outside of STEM and business. One of those being quantitative reasoning, another one being a stat course here. And when you look at quantitative reasoning and stats, again, these courses provide far more relevant math skills, again, for the majority of our majors. And we know that based on research, but we also know that based on feedback that we've had from our institutions here. We did some surveying in March and April where we asked participants to identify the math skills that are critical in their respective disciplines. So we really want to drill down and see, okay, what are the math skills that are critical for a journalism major? What are the math skills that are critical for a history major, economics major, and so on and so forth. So obviously I cannot share the entire survey with you. We don't have enough time, but I am going to cover one of our large kind of meta majors, which is social science, which includes a variety of things like political science and psychology and sociology and so on. And so what we're looking at here is the percentage of participants noted each skill is being critical for the social science discipline. You're going to see college algebra skills off to the left here, and you'll see stat skills on the right. And when we look at the college algebra skills, you'll notice that these are all very, very low. There was only one that was above 50%. And so really important to note that college algebra skills don't really translate to social science disciplines. Statistics, though, a very different story. You're going to see a stark contrast here. These numbers are going to surge up here. You're going to see 9 different skills here. These are much more critical here when you break this down here. So we have 9 skills here. Really important to note that at least 67% of all respondents noted each stat skill as being critical. So in other words, we had a super majority on 9 out of 9 skills. We went 0 for 9 on super majority with college algebra. We went 9 for 9 with the stat course. So this is not really that hard at the end of the day. It's very clear that a stats course is far more relevant to social science majors. And it's a better option. So we met with social science discipline representatives a couple of weeks ago, and they unanimously agreed that a stat course should be the general education option for our social science majors. So that's just an example of some of the work that we've done here. I just really want to emphasize this is all about the skills that are needed in the discipline here. That is really our compass and driving force and doing this work. So we're going to be meeting with other disciplines in the near future, like arts and humanities, and we'll be doing that soon. We'll be meeting with health sciences. We'll be meeting with a variety of disciplines in the near future to identify the math skills that are needed and hopefully land on a specific course. So this is important work that we're doing. And I just want to emphasize that this is not some radical new idea. This is something that's very mainstream here. When you look at the states that touch Kansas, every state has already done this work. So we're kind of the new kid on the block here. With Louisiana, we're kind of in a freshman kind of rookie cohort with them and doing some kind of professional development and preparation with them on some things. So second project I do want to cover is co-requisite remediation. And before I jump in, I do want to kind of highlight the ways in which you can go about remediating students, because there are different approaches and some are more effective than others. Traditionally, remediation has really looked like this. Students often take 2-3 remedial classes before they can qualify for the credit-bearing course. So we're talking about students who are not college ready to go into a standalone college algebra class as an example. How do we remediate them? So you have the prerequisite option there first. That's been largely ineffective in Kansas and nationally. Then you have more of a foundation course model where you take one semester of remediation and then you take the credit-bearing course the next semester. So that's been a little bit better. Co-requisite has been significantly better here. And that's really what we're shooting for here. We're scaling co-requisite remediation, which is based on integrating the remedial content into the credit-bearing course here. So that's something we're going to be scaling as part of this project work, is this being the remediation strategy for our system going forward here. And so co-requisite remediation is a big part of this. And I do want to emphasize the outcomes that come with this that have been seen in other places like Georgia here. They were primarily doing traditional remediation back in 2013. You'll see only about 20% of those students were completing a general education math course back then, which is obviously not very good. They basically ran a pilot program between 2015 and 2017 where half of their students did the foundation course where you do one semester of remediation and then the second semester is credit bearing, and then the other half did co-requisites. You'll see the little cheat sheet there at the bottom. And when you break it down, the foundation model was a little bit better, 29%, some improvement here, but the co-requisite shot up all the way to 63%. So significant gains there. And as a result of that, they said, we're done with foundations. We're done with traditional remediation. We are all in on co-requisite, and the number jumped up again. And I think the thing that's really important to note when we talk about co-requisite is looking at the subpopulations here. You're going to see, looking at the African-American population, which is a very prevalent population in Georgia, 64%, Hispanic, 70%, Pell Grant students, 67%, first generation, 67% here. So this is something that generates success for all students, which is something that we want at the end of the day here. So this improves access, it improves success, it improves affordability, it removes a completion barrier. This is the policy lever that really takes us to the next level where we go from talking about equity to equity in action. And there's a significant difference there. So this is I think a game-changing project for us going forward here and aiming to close these equity gaps. I think this is an essential component in that work. The second thing or third thing I want to talk about is the course placement measures here. And essentially the data on this is really clear that using a high school performance standard is a far better predictor of success. Looking at GPA, grades in certain high school courses, is a far better predictor than an ACT or SAT or standardized test. So the vast majority of our institutions have been doing that for a while and placing students in college algebra and English. We still have a few that aren't, but the vast majority are, which is great. The bigger challenge that we've had, though, is that we're really all over the place. It was a common question that we get is, what's the requirement to enroll in college algebra? And the answer is we don't really know, because there's up to 32 different standards, because we don't define that at the state level. And we're really one of the only states in the country that doesn't have some sort of standard on that here. So we're really all over the place, and it makes it very difficult for K-12. There's all kinds of mixed messages and moving targets. So one of the goals, obviously, that we have is to work more collaboratively with K-12 to simplify post-secondary planning. And this works right into this to create more common college readiness standards. Really aligns with that goal. And so this is ultimately what we want to get to, something along these lines, where we would have a specific high school standard, we'd have a specific ACT, SAT standard, then we would specify the courses that the student was eligible for. So this is really what we want to end up with, and we'll be doing that work in this process as well. And then just the last project I want to highlight on gets into academic degree maps. And these are term by term schedules that say this is what you take first semester of your freshman year. This is what you take the second term of your freshman year. This is what you take the first semester of your sophomore year, and so on and so forth. A lot of our programs are highly sequential. And if you miss a course, it can really throw off enrollment, eligibility, and subsequent courses. It can delay your graduation. So this is a really good advising tool that promotes on-time completion. Also, the National Institute for Student Success and all the playbooks, they mentioned this was a really vital project for all the institutions that participated in this. So this will be something that all of our institutions will be doing. I think it'll be a really good advising tool. Just in terms of timing on this, we are in AY23, finishing that up right now. So we're almost in AY24. So essentially we have one more year of using kind of the existing performance funding system that we have. So when BASC reviews performance funding next year, they'll be looking at one more year of the kind of the old, or I guess, existing system. So we have one more year to go, and then AY25, which is technically looking at fall of 2024, that's when the new system kicks in. And so this just kind of outlines the process here. AY25, institutions will be participating in some KBOR sponsored professional development. So we're going to be bringing leading faculty who have worked on co-requisites and math pathways here to share their lessons learned and so forth. So we have that particular piece. Also, institutions will work on designing their math courses and their co-requisite supports. They'll be submitting their degree maps. And then AY26, looking at fall of 2025, is really more of a soft launch where we'll kind of dip our toe in, and each institution will offer at least one section of each math pathway course. They'll offer at least one section of each co-requisite math and English support, and they'll submit degree maps. And then AY27 is really what we're looking at in terms of full scale. That's fall of 2026. And that's when we're implementing all these projects fully, math pathways, co-requisite, and using the system-wide course placement standards. So the other piece that goes with this is just some policy revisions here. We just need to make sure that we have the infrastructure that we need. So we have some definitions. We outline the process of placing students in courses. We also detail the ways in which institutions can deliver co-requisite remediation. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so before that, Madam Chair, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I do. I have several things that I would like to add. So
Thank you.
you saved me from going, Mr. Chair or co-chair or vice chair. Several things. I mean, I think this, a lot of work has gone into this. So I want to thank Daniel. I want to thank the provost has certainly given us a lot of input as we've gone through this. I particularly like what we're doing here with the performance funding model because it does let us have a system to transition away from some of the measures that we were doing that we weren't finding particularly successful, or in some ways, what gets measured gets done. And we were measuring some of the things that as we learned through our work with the NISS playbooks, that they maybe weren't the best practice. And so this gives us the way to move away from those measures to this. The vision that we have in BASC is this is transition. So when we get out to AY28, by that point, we will have then transitioned back to a more objective based system where we're starting to measure these things to see their impact. So, just know that this isn't, we don't see this as the end game in and of itself, but it's a transition to some different measures and ways of doing things. Also have had conversation in BASC about how our institutions and what we can do as a system to provide support, share the metrics that they are beginning to get, see what's being successful. So, see where more support is needed. So even though this might imply that we aren't going to be looking at any of the data that this is generating until AY28, that's really not the case, but.
And the timeline shows 23 and 24, and I'd call almost a parallel system before we go to funding. I presume we'd have a chance to make adjustments after we have that experience as well.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
we would
we do
see
a lot.
something happening, it's like this just really doesn't work. Yes, there's an opportunity to make changes in this transitional time.
Okay, so now any questions? Yes, sir.
Dr. Archer, somebody who struggled with college algebra, I wish you would have done this about 25 years ago. My transcripts would have looked a lot better, I can assure you. You gave a great presentation at our April meeting at Pittsburgh State, and I did have a question related to the models, because I believe you talked about 3 models for delivering the co-requisite. One is essentially building in a lab on either side of the gateway course. Then there was a boot camp style that the first 2 or 3 weeks of the course, really gets you up to speed. Now, I believe there was a third one. Will students get to select which of those models, or will that be chosen by the institution and delivered to the student?
Right. It would be up to the institution, and there also could be different models. One institution could potentially deliver, 2 or 3 models depending on what the student's needs are. For instance, someone who has higher needs, it's lesser prepared, probably would need to go to the supplemental course section where they attend an additional class. That's proven to be the best model for the students who are coming in with lesser prepared backgrounds. Whereas tutoring may be a good option for someone who's just right below the college level. And so it'll be up to the institution as to how they manage that. But that's one of the big pieces in this policy, is we'll be able to really decipher what's what, and then we'll be able to look at data and look at specific populations and look and see which particular model is most effective with particular student populations. I think that'll help guide additional decisions down the road. I mean, this is a process, and there's a lot of moving parts, but we wanted to provide flexibility at the outset, knowing this is a big change.
Flanders.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Ice. Number one on this remediation model, it is going to work. I mean, we have the numbers, and we'll get numbers for our system. But I'd remind most of the board, I don't know if all the board was there, but we've seen this model before in our system. We have it. And we saw it when we toured the KU Athletic Center. For those students, we used this model. They were enrolled in credit-bearing courses and had academic support, and the outcomes were off the charts. So we've seen the model. It will work for the system. And I'm just always trying to think about how could we get it in faster? Because we are sacrificing classes as we move forward. And we need to think about how we move as quickly as we can.
So, okay, well, go ahead, Regent Harrison. I would like to hear from the Chancellor and Presidents if they have any input. Yeah, but go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad you brought that up, President Flanders. First of all, thank you for the impressive work, Dr. Archer, along with my colleagues on VASC. The results are refreshing. But as I think about the enrollment declines and the cost of higher ed, each year we delay this has a significant impact on affordability and access. And these opportunity gaps, as I think about the Panasonics of the world and the other companies that are looking to have the talent pipeline, I can't help but ask the same question. How do we do this at the speed of business so that we're able to help those industries that are coming in? So I'm very interested in hearing what our CEOs have to say about, can we lift this in a different way so that we can meet the needs of the industry that's coming to the state of Kansas?
Yeah, Wichita State's perspective, I think we're supportive of this. We have maybe not called what we're doing in our math area co-requisite and remediation, but we're doing similar kinds of things if we could standardize that. I know that our oldest son, he did not pass out. He's 36 on the ACT, did not pass algebra. Didn't need algebra, and when we finally got past that at KU, then we moved through a major milestone. So I understand that not everybody needs a course in algebra and for success in their chosen major, and I support it. We have a lot of conversations ongoing at the university, and we'll continue to work through those. It's just change of mindset for some individuals on campus, but I think we can get there.
Yes, go ahead.
First comment is thank you, because as we started this process, we had all these initiatives that we've been working on, but it had nothing to do with our performance agreements, and it made no sense, right? I think this makes so much more sense. If we're going to do these initiatives, then to your point, that's what we should measure. And that's what we should prioritize. And so getting alignment with that, I think, is really important. And obviously they're going to be living and changing as we move. New initiatives will follow the current initiatives as we go forward. But secondly, I think when you think about all those initiatives, some of those are a little better baked than others. Is that fair to say? You've talked to the social sciences, you haven't talked to the humanities and the art. You're really talking about changing the prerequisites for degrees, of which we have hundreds. And so to your point of can we snap and do this by fall, the answer is probably not. There is a lot of work that has to go in behind that to get alignment with the degrees, and the data is impressive. It's hard to argue, but there's also a lot of work that goes behind making that happen. And we have to create the courses. We don't even have the courses right now. So we have to do that as well.
Regent Lane?
Thank you very much, Regent Ice. My grandmother used to make these wonderful blueberry pies, and I would hang out with her in the kitchen, and she would make the crust, but she didn't send me away to say, come back a few months later and I'll show you how to do the next piece. So I appreciate building capacity. We need to do that. And this timeline may be right on point for building capacity. But at the same time, we need to be measuring sugar, the blueberries. How are we doing and what do we need to add to move forward? So I would just ask, and this is not new, Daniel Archer, you heard me speak. I think these are absolutely right, the best practices. And I don't see them as equity practices. I see them as opportunity practices. How do we bake that wonderful blueberry pie, knowing it's going to get better and better as we build capacity, and measure along the way? And, I guess I would also suggest, and maybe this is my desire to stay in the fast lane. If we are doing performance funding on measures that we know aren't making a difference, why are we going to do another year of that? Let's get this in place and do whatever we need to do to support the campuses, including the community colleges, so that we can bake that pie and make sure that our students have the opportunity, and not wait 4 or 5 years before we know if it's time to take it out of the oven.
We do have kind of these formal written agreements that are kind of tied, and unfortunately, timing wise, I think we are locked into next year the way I would interpret it. But I'm looking at our new attorneys that haven't worked with performance agreements a lot, but that's the way I understand it, that we'd be locked into these agreements because we basically sign sort of these contract type documents that outline what the parameters are, what the metrics are, and the timeline that institutions are going to be judged upon and so forth.
Well, it might help to think a little bit about that. The performance agreement is based on the work and the results that you see that, were completed in the past year. So we're kind of always a year in arrears. So it's not exactly possible to say we suddenly start today, because the work is starting today. So I see us, when this is approved, that the work that this will be based on actually is starting now, that this won't be that people can drag their feet and wait another year before they get started. They're going to have to get started now.
Yeah, there's definitely
doing the work. So the change will be happening immediately.
Perhaps a supplement then that would focus our attention on where we're going rather than where we've been.
I think that's fair.
Well, might I suggest that we've gotten this far, rather than stop and try to change something now, let's approve it as it is and recognize we'll have chances to make adjustments going forward. And if there's a way to make these adjustments that give us more information and let us do it faster, then hallelujah.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we approve.
Thank you.
And I would second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor then, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have our plan. You.
Like to say that you can't
Which means we better move then so that we can get you to dinner. All right, so I think that takes them to item 3, which are the updates on the student success recommendations. So, and I believe first out is the Emporia State team.
Good afternoon. My name's Shelley Gerke. I serve as the Vice President of Enrollment Management and Student Success. Super happy to be here, not happy to be after Blueberry discussion, especially since I know we're all having the same sympathy pains as President Ship and our derrieres in these chairs. But I will try to be concise and quick. Thanks. You're welcome. I'm happy to be here to highlight what we've implemented and where we're going with the NIS at Emporia State, focusing on the access and success that we're hoping to improve. A little background and context. So Emporia State had been working really hard on a strategic enrollment management plan, and we literally rolled that out to campus the month before we had our presentation from NIST regarding their recommendations. So since then, we've been working hard to make sure they complement and overlap, which was not a very big lift because we were all pretty much there at the same space. Our recommendations are about the same as everybody else's. Structured pathways on the academic journey, improvements and collaborations with academic advising, financial aid collaborations and proactive outreach, and then actionable data reactions and efficient student communications. I don't think there were any surprises for anybody there. You have this updated timeline in microscopic print, and so you can take that home and look at it with your microscope. But I want to pull out a few high-level ones that I'm very excited about. I'm going to start with the move to a professional academic advising model for our undergraduate students. We start with this because it provides the greatest benefit to the most students. We moved all of our undergraduate students to professional full-time advisors, which was about a 40% increase in our advising team, the personnel staff. We have a collaborative, centralized training for all of these advisors under the leadership of our senior director, Kathy Landwehr, collaborating with campus centrally and all our entities and resources on campus, and then even in the community. So our advisors are all moving more and more towards offering a consistent student experience. We launched our pilot summer bridge last August. Our goal is to double the amount of students who attend that this August, including some new incoming transfer students. And we've built out our recruitment to career funnel, which really complements the structured pathways. And it also helps support the questioning value in the public of the value of higher education in general. One key piece in the recruitment to career, we have a program called Classroom to Career Suit program, where students go through a series of exercises and initiatives, and then they get a custom tailored suit. We doubled that, actually by 62%, we increased the number of students walking away with these very nice suits. The implementation of the Student Success CRM will certainly complement all these initiatives. We hope to have Dropout Detective up and running for this academic year, and then by fall 2024, have the Cadillac of EAB Navigate in place. My Majors is another platform we're rolling out this summer that will also complement the career funnel, classroom to career funnel. As far as financial aid, we have awarded our financial letters 3 months earlier than typical this last year, and it was an iterative process. So as more data or more awards came in, the students got new letters. We dusted off our data strategy team and really have built some centralized reporting with various cashiering, financial aid, student success, and transcript information to be on a single reporting mechanism for our advisors to be able to do proactive outreach. You haven't finished your FAFSA, let's work on that. You haven't established a payment plan, let's work on that, and so forth. Then communication. So we know in higher education, we have lots of two things, data and communication, and we are not always the best at utilizing either one of those. We did in the enrollment management and student success world, we did a complete audit of all the communications coming out from our area. And we are hiring a marketing director that will help finesse that and make it much more efficient this next year. Hopefully that means students won't get 30 emails in a week or 80 emails in a month and horrible things like that. Some things on the way that we're working on is building out an emergency aid network, which will include the completion grants and some retention grants built into that network. I mentioned adding the enrollment management student success marketing person, and then we're developing an app to help with the communication to students and to make sure they all are on the same page regarding different events and opportunities across campus. At this point, we are building what we are working on with the recommendations, and we will begin coming in with the measurements, with this year kind of being the baseline for everything that we're doing and bringing it up to level. And with that, I will stand for any questions. You're welcome.
Hiker team, is that what you said?
All right.
Thank you. I am really delighted to have the opportunity to share an update with our student success journey at Fort Hays State University. While I am here on behalf of the university, really what we should have is listed every single person at our university, because we all have a part to play in student success, regardless of our position and our role. So what you'll see here on the first slide is just a reminder about our mission, which is focused on student success. I think you have in your packet, do you have this information in front of you? Okay, great. Hopefully on that slide, you could see it a little bit better than on the slide on the screen. This is the timeline that was presented to you, I believe, last week or last year, as part of our rollout of our student success plan. What I will call your attention to is we are in year 4, finishing up year 4 of our university strategic plan at Fort Hays State University. And goal 2 of that strategic plan was student success. And so what you see in the top right-hand corner of this timeline is our one of our outcomes from goal 2, which was a student success focused outcome. So the NIST playbook initiatives dovetailed perfectly into goal 2 of our university strategic plan, as well as some of the initiatives that we were already planning and implementing at Fort Hays State University. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the 2 goal chairs of that strategic plan component, Dr. Andrew Feldstein and Dr. Taylor Criley. So what I'd like to do today is highlight some things that were completed actually prior to the NIST playbook coming out, as well as some things that we've worked on over the last year, and then some forward-thinking strategies going into next year. These 3 items connected to really NIST Goal 1, which focused on advising, were completed prior to NIST. So we actually already had an academic advising, we called it an academic advising committee at Fort Hays State University. One of the recommendations out of our NIST playbook was to do that. So we took last year to restructure that a bit, add some more of our advisors to that council, and really shift it to a professional development and training opportunity, a body that would help facilitate some of that work. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. The second thing that we really completed prior to NIST was implementation of a new centralized advising model. So we recognized in summer of 2021 that we needed to move from our existing model of faculty advisors to a centralized model using professional advisors. So that full implementation began in spring 2022. We received our playbook shortly after that. And then we also prior to the NIST playbook coming out, started drafting degree maps, weren't calling them that at the time, But we're drafting degree maps with our Workday implementation, our new ERP system at Fort Hays State University. So we currently are fully implemented with our advising model. We have 24 professional advisors that are advising all of our online and our on-campus students at Fort Hays State. So things that are completed after year one of the NIST playbook implementation and are currently still expanding are some items out of goals 2, 3, and 4 regarding goals 2, 3, and 4 in NIST. We are still working. We are actually the first institution using Workday Student that's implementing their financial aid module. That's been a huge lift for the institution. And so that is being deployed right now. And so along with that implementation are some dashboards being created, which will really help us with goal 2, which is the financial aid piece of the goal for NIST. So those dashboards should be implemented by August, it's my understanding. And with that financial aid module, we'll have more opportunity to see data, reports, and engagements with students that are more robust and more timely and more focused on what the student needs in terms of financial aid communication. In terms of NIST Goal 3, that was really around restructuring our university's course design, planning, and review process to include data on course demand, DFW rates, success by modality, and bottlenecking. And so the thing that we've been working on this year is deploying more academic support for students that are struggling in high DUW rate courses. We use a U at Fort Hays versus an F. And so we're working on that. We have actually deployed peer tutoring on campus, and then we have Smart Thinking, which is a platform for our online students. We want to make sure that we're mirroring our student success opportunities for our online students as much as we are our on-campus students. And so that's a growth area for us is matching those student success opportunities for our online students, which connects to goal 4 of our NIST goals. And that is better connecting our online students to our university experience, connecting them with one another, connecting them with faculty, and connecting them with the university. And so these two platforms, the Tiger to Tiger platform, and then we have a Culture of Belongingness course that we're using to help faculty better understand how to connect with our online students. That's a gap area we have at Fort Hays State. Even though we've been doing this for 25 years and we have high quality programs, that's still a gap area for us that we're closing the gap on and seeing some great returns on that investment. Moving on to, these are opportunities that will be continuing into year 2. We actually had been using Starfish as our early alert system and abandoned that. And tried to use Blackboard Analytics this year, and it was met with some success. And so we're really anxious to have the new student success platform, the analytics platform to use to better equip us with early alerts so that our faculty, our advisors, and others across the institution can assist students earlier in their journey when they're struggling. We also, as I mentioned before, are working to fully implement our financial aid module through Workday, which we think will help us make progress on goal 2 in our NIST goals. Here's some additional strategies that weren't in that original timeline I think are worth mentioning because they are connected to student success. I think we are the first institution, 4-year institution to be implementing the system-wide general education framework. That was a big lift for our university over the last few months. And so students this fall will be entering into that program or have the opportunity to shift to that program, which is a win for our institution and for our students at our institution. Along with our professional advising model, we implemented a faculty mentoring model. So every student at Fort Hays State University has a professional advisor, but they also have a faculty mentor that will assist them with more career readiness questions and opportunities to connect them to internships and things beyond maybe their academic, what a traditional academic advisor might have conversations about. We're continuing to refine our Workday product, and that's been a huge lift for our institution, but feel like a lot of our NIST goals and student success in general, Workday can help drive good data for those decisions. And then this last year, this is kind of interesting. I don't know if any other institution does this in the state of Kansas still, but we have interim grades, midterm grades posted for on-campus classes. Up until this year, we'd been doing that since I've been at Fort Hays State over 20 years. Our virtual student senate and our student senate came to the faculty senate and asked for interim or midterm grades to be posted for our online classes as well, because that was not a practice at Fort Hays State. And through shared governance efforts with faculty senate, student government, and the virtual student senate, we are now posting interim grades for our on-campus and our online courses at Fort Hays State University, which is part of a student success initiative for the university. These are the items that we'll be working on over the next year. I don't need to read through them, but I'm happy to answer questions about any of these or anything else that I've mentioned. Any questions?
Questions, anyone? Who's your winner?
Gil, if there's been a surprise to you in regard to development of NEST, what is it?
How badly we needed a student success analytics platform.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you for the update. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Wichita State team, please.
Thank you. And I too am pleased to be here to share an update on our work with the National Institute for Student Success. At our campus, we call it Student Success and Persistence. So we've had a strategic enrollment management plan for a number of years, really. And two of the goals within that SIM plan really focused on retention. So the NIST work really has allowed us to kind of zero in and elevate those two goals. So you also have this chart in your packet, and we shared this with you last year as well. The one thing that was not on the original that is on this one is our 5-phase model for tracking students' success throughout a current semester. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But we wanted to start just by really elevating the work of student success really needs to be owned by everyone on our campus, from the president to every person on our campus. So we've really tried to make that a priority and communicate that priority across our campus. So the president and I have sent out video messages. We've done a university town hall. We've hosted college town halls. So we've really tried to promote communication about what it is that we're doing under student success and engaging every single person in the work. The president executive team also identified 3 strategies that we are owning as the executive team and thinking about what we can do as leaders on our campus to really make this a priority and across our campus. And then lastly, our Higher Learning Commission Quality Initiative is due in the fall. So we are also aligning this work to that focus. Again, keeping at high level, we put some things in place. I think of them as infrastructure that will help us be successful or continue being successful. First, we started our Student Success and Persistence Coalition, has representation from all colleges and all units across campus. We had an open assistant vice president position, and so we restructured that position to focus on student success and persistence. That person started on Monday. We're very excited to have him on board. We have been hosting student success lunches. I asked 2 questions when I host those students. The first is, if you've ever thought of stopping out, quitting, or if you've had a friend who's had voiced those concerns to you, what are the reasons? I want to know what the reasons are. We have survey data, but and it tells us that it's academics and finance, but I wanted to dig a little bit deeper. So we're collecting that information as well. We have monthly academic forum. We've had those forever, but now we're making sure that the topics on those during those forums are focused on student success. And then every Monday, we have our strategic enrollment management leaders meet every Monday morning. We look at enrollment reports. We look at And we talk about strategies that we can do to ensure student success. So moving on to the 4 recommendations, this was our first one. And again, we've been doing this work for a while, but just some of the highlights. We created a student success scorecard with specific metrics and tactics that we're following. Each college has a retention plan that's aligned to that scorecard, and we've been broadening our summer bridge programs. We too have looked at our high non-pass rate courses and implemented some strategies to improve student success in those, including course revisions, supplemental instruction, tutoring, a whole host of ways that we're approaching. We're looking at every individual course that's a high non-pass rate and thinking about what is it in that particular class that's preventing all of our students from being successful, and we're making revisions based on that. Super excited about some of our future plans for expanding our summer launch programs, including our Herencia Bridge program for high school seniors. And then our student affairs team is putting together a leadership series that we will launch this summer. The whole point of our summer bridge classes are so that students can come to campus 1 week early. They stay in the residence hall, they find out all about the resources that we have, and they start making friends with other first-year students. Second recommendation is academic advising. And again, we have really put a lot of emphasis on making sure that all of our advisors are sharing the same good information. So we've reconstituted our academic advising team, making sure that they're communicating with each other. We hosted our very first advising fair in Chucker Hall this fall. Very successful. One of the outcomes from that is students registered for their spring classes in greater numbers. So that was, we considered a huge win for us. Also very excited for next summer and opening our Shocker Success Center. The third recommendation, academic pathways. We have partnered with Mays School District, and we will host a Shocker Academy on the West Campus. It's an early college academy. Students will go to high school in the morning and complete college credit in the afternoon, and vice versa. Really excited about that. We're continuing to increase our use of Navigate and wraparound services for all of our students. And we have had degree plan templates for a while, but we didn't mandate those. So we have mandated those for every major. And we've also said that every degree plan needs to look exactly alike. So if the student changes major, they'll still have something very familiar. We're also piloting an English co-requisite experience. We call it Oz. It's Opportunity Zone. It will start this summer. Low cost, low risk. Students will pay $30 to take this course. And if they're successful, then they can get credit for English 111. And then lastly, financial outreach. We've really tried to be much more focused in terms of how we support our students who are on financial aid. As President Muma mentioned, we've invested every year in need-based aid, and now we're really focusing on education and supporting our students in terms of how they manage their resources. So with that, I will answer questions.
Thank you. Same question as before. What has been the biggest surprise for you in implementing and moving this program along?
I'm not going to call it a surprise, but I would just say the energy. Our faculty have really bought into this work and getting excited about it. And so the Oz program is a good example of that. They just are looking for ideas and then pouncing on them.
If I can ask, is that partially because you were predicting that the faculty might be resistive? You can answer that in a private room if you'd like. Private text.
It's been very good.
That's great.
She's halfway
Hang on.
being a lawyer.
Hang on, I have another question here. Mr. Mendoza.
Just a quick question. Can you elaborate a little bit on the Herencia Bridge program? What you said it was for high school seniors?
Yes, so they will come to campus for a week and just, it's for our Hispanic students. So really to try to create that sense of belonging.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you for the work. Okay, that takes us to, we did B1 already, as you know, so we're now on page 79, the capital improvement 5-year plan. If it's in fiscal affairs, and I take it since you're all more to the mic, Chad, Elaine does not have any preamble. So go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, as you said, discussion item B2 is to act on the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement requests and 5-year plans. I'll be very brief here because the project information remains unchanged since the first read in April, with the exception of just a few project details. And those were a result of the board acting on the consent agenda in April. We had a Wichita and a KU Medical Center project updates, amendments at the April meeting. The University of Kansas also had one modification to their list, changed a large capital project to a small project because of available funding. So you'll see the total project number, the total count went from 154 projects in total to 153. You'll see that at the bottom, near the bottom of page 79. And then on pages 81 and 82, as we highlighted last time, you'll see the projects outlined by category. And then you'll also see the 2 designations of projects that are brand new to the capital plans in this cycle and projects that have been approved by the board mid-cycle over the last fiscal year. So that's 81 and 82. And then following that, you have the 14-page supplement, which is essentially the tabular summary of all of the projects for KBOR as well as all of the universities. And the only thing I would add to this is based on the board's approval of the consent agenda today, we will have a couple of more minor updates before this is formatted and submitted to the Division of Budget on July 1st.
All right, so just to say a couple more things, which may be my practice of saying something everybody knows, but just in case. So as Chad just said, by July 1, we have, by statute, we have to submit this. So that's part of the process of approving this. You all recall that we approve a 5-year plan annually. It's comprehensive, as you see by the numbers. Things move from that to the action phase, and then that's when we do a formal program statement. So before we're actually even more action, we'll see another step on all of these. And then this fits in the context of the several month running process that we do for our whole budget request, which is in April, we do a first read of the capital improvement plan, as Chad just described. We then approve the 5-year plan this month. Then in the June meeting, we start to get budget requests. Then we had our offsite, a strategic offsite. Then we talk further about our assumptions as we did last year and the things that help set the framework we talked about today. The September board meeting we approve, and then it has to be to the state by statute by October 1. So this is one of the steps in that whole process. So having said all that, any questions about anything that Director Briscoe just presented? If there are not, we could use a motion to approve this. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Nicely done, sir. Okay, now that I believe takes us to updates on the master plans, but let me make sure I find the right spot in the agenda. Page 96, update on master plans. And first out is Emporia State.
Thank you. As the board is aware, we've embraced the campus master plan vividly and appreciate KBOR and the legislators, particularly funding of various demolition projects for us. A special thank you to Chad Bristow. Chad, appreciate all the creativity, the proactiveness, and the fast tracking of all our projects. So thank you. I'm going to introduce two of our senior leaders to talk about this in detail. Corey Faldine, who is our Executive Vice President of Operations and Economic Development, and Bill McKernan, who is our Assistant Vice President of Infrastructure and University Facilities.
Hello. I am also going to try and keep this brief because I know you're getting to the end of your day.
Well, tell us what we need to know, though.
So I do appreciate the opportunity to chat with you a little bit here. Really, the gist here on this recent accomplishments slide is that we have been moving forward with our campus master plan, and we've been adapting it as we go. A campus master plan, especially in our case, it can be a standalone plan, but really it was built and is intentionally adapted to interweave with our campus strategic plan and our strategic enrollment management plan, which you see in a number of the things that we've done, and especially in these last few years. So in some cases, that's come through new and renovated academic, residential, and athletic facilities. It's come with investment and improvement of our core academic buildings, such as King Hall, which houses our theater and our art departments. We have been improving our exterior campus beautification. Our IT continuity plan, we've built out a full on-site disaster recovery environment. Special thanks to Ken Harmon at Wichita State for helping us get past the finish line and the support through that, especially these last few years. We have been investing in our retention and persistence with renovations to both our Academic Center for Excellence and Success, which we call ACES, and our Student Advising Center to support our recent move to professional advisors. Something I'm particularly happy and proud of is our improved accessibility. We've been working through safer street crosswalks, improved furniture and technology in our classrooms, and like many other institutions, we have spent a significant amount of investment in making sure that our online technologies and environments are just as accessible and equitable as our physical facilities and technologies. So moving ahead just a little bit, what's the challenge keeping us from doing more in our campus master plan? And just like many of our sister institutions, it's aging infrastructure. The average age of our buildings is around 64 years old. We have $100 million in backlog and deferred maintenance just in our mission critical buildings. When you add in auxiliaries, athletics, campus grounds, utilities, we're closer to double that. It's getting more and more difficult to make forward motion investments to the campus when I would say a larger chunk of our limited resource pie is getting eaten up by emergencies and deferred maintenance. Again, none of this is new. None of this is a secret. Everybody's dealing with this. So what we've been doing with our campus master plan and our other strategic plans is adapting it to tackle this in a handful of different ways. Some of this is going to be a recap, so I apologize, bear with me. One big one is reducing the aging campus footprint. By 2026, we will have reduced our mission critical footprint by a gross of 15%, and we'll do that by selling or raising all of the remaining D-rated buildings that we have. That is a total of 5 buildings, and that alone reduces our total mission critical deferred maintenance by just around 20%, which to us is huge. While again, this hasn't been easy, I would say that taking the emotion out of it, which is difficult when you start taking down buildings on college campuses, there's a lot of nostalgia there. But when we take the emotion out of it and we really focus on the numbers, these have been I would say, I hate to call it easy, but these have been the easily identifiable and low hanging fruit options. Where we go next is going to get increasingly tricky, but we will get there. So in tandem to that, as we remove our aging infrastructure and we start raising some of our buildings, we're continuing to consolidate our existing footprint. So using the example on this slide here, by divesting in our Earl Center, we did substantially improve the utilization of Visser Hall. So what we're going to see as we move forward are similar improved space optimizations in Plum Hall, our science halls, our library, and a handful of other spaces across campus when we raise our Butcher Education Center South and Southeast Morris buildings, which will again happen here later on this year. Central also comes down this year, and then South and Southeast here within the next 18 to 24 months, looking at Bill. All right, so in parallel with our existing space, we're also doing space optimization and programmatic needs assessments, which is a fancy way of saying every single building we're going through, we're looking at the student success and the academic programs we have, and we're doing a almost ad nauseam assessment of what we need to do as we continue to build out our new campus plan, which is coming up in FY25. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to spend a larger amount of our limited resources on fewer spaces. Aligned with that, we're increasing our investment in strategically addressing big chunks of deferred maintenance. This one has been tougher because essentially it's reallocating resources from other campus priorities. But this does help us prevent more costly emergencies and that backlog of deferred maintenance growth. Using this slide, unfortunately, this isn't the thing that everybody always gets excited about, but it does go a long way to reducing deferred maintenance when we work on campus roofs, HVAC, and other energy efficient areas. So yeah, we'll spend some money up front, but ultimately these are the things that are going to save us tremendous amounts of funding and issues down the road. So pulling the last few slides together, what we're doing right now is making decisions for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years. Deferred maintenance has grown by nearly 150% in the last decade. It's not going to slow down. We could easily argue that we will see it grow by another 100 to 150% over the next decade. So what we're doing by divesting and raising buildings, and then by also simultaneously investing in core deferred maintenance areas, we're curbing the exponential growth of our deferred maintenance. So with these 5 examples that you're seeing, and the reason that we like to use this slide is to say, yes, by raising buildings, we're going to get rid of over $18 million in deferred maintenance right off the bat. But what we're also going to do is we're ultimately going to avoid over $40 million over the next 10 years in that exponential growth in deferred maintenance. So those are dollars that we're going to essentially be able to spend in existing spaces that we have on campus or new programs and spaces we need to build as we adapt our academic side.
And how much did you spend in those demolitions?
Well, let's see, about 3 or 4 million,
Right,
give or
so-
take. 3.
Right.
When we add all 4 of them.
Okay, and it's that kind of leverage that was really crucial in getting money again this year.
So 5 million for 18 million upfront and 40 million over 10 years. So why are we doing it? Back to the goal of what we do on the academic and the student success sides of our house, we're prioritizing the available resources we have to align with that campus master plan and our strategic enrollment plans. We're going to move into the development of a new campus master plan in FY25. We're going to invest in our strike zone areas, and that's why we prioritize the renovations that we do to align with the programs that we're investing in. We're going to include our auxiliaries to paint the whole picture, because unfortunately, in some cases, by not including them, we sell ourselves short in some of our auxiliaries, our Memorial Union, our housing, and our parking areas. We're going to make sure, let's see, we are going to continue to invest in current campus initiatives, which are in that campus master plan. Cybersecurity, nursing, of course, is one of the big ones we're working on right now. We're refining our space assessment reviews and our policy implementations so that as we're building out the new space, we're helping people understand how we're going to hone it down and what we're going to focus on. And again, we're going to continue to focus on those aspirational projects that were in the capital projects plan that Chad just shared a couple of minutes ago. So with that, I will stand for questions or have Bill come up here and answer them.
Questions, anyone? All right, thank you. Appreciate all the good work. Wichita State.
Thank you. You should have this handout at your desk. We last had you approve our campus master plan in 2014 and updated that with Innovation Campus in 2017. And we most recently hired Gensler architecture firm to walk us through that same process that we used 10 years ago. They also designed our business building and they've done other design work in the system. I'm going to have Emily Patterson, our Executive Director of Facilities Planning, walk through that with you.
Thank you all for having me here today. I'm really happy to present this process to you. We are early in our process, as Dr. Mana said. We are 10 years out from the last update and ready to jump in. If you look at the next slide here, just a big picture of where we were in 2014 at the end of the master plan. We established some zones of campus with an athletic corridor and an academic corridor and arts corridor. But you can see in 2014, we still had a full 18-hole golf course on our campus. And I would say months after we finished the master plan, the decision was made to start the Innovation Campus, which wasn't in the master plan. So in 2017, we went ahead and did a supplemental section for our master plan document that did show where we were at that point in the development of the campus master plan for the Innovation Campus. So just a framework of where we had been and where we are now today. We've identified some early on in the process. We do have some challenges, just as other campuses do. We have an aging infrastructure as underground utilities all the way up to the buildings that we need to evaluate as part of this process. We've looked at the deferred maintenance list. I'll talk about that later. And then we are a pretty landlocked campus with development and streets around that do tie us into this section of campus. We do have some opportunities, of course, though, because we have the opportunity to densify and increase pedestrian connections across campus, which we continue to do, looking at vehicular circulation on campus as well as parking availability. We need to look at continuing to strengthen the core of campus and improve the edges as part of this. As you can see on here, we are very early in this process. So if you caught this update has caught us just at the end of this discovery process. So we started in January this year. We have an internal goal to identify major capital plans, capital improvement projects to make recommendations to the WSU Foundation Board for their next capital fundraising. So that is what we're aiming for the end of the summer, to identify those big picture projects. But we're going to continue to refine the master plan throughout the rest of the year so we can continue to explore all the data, make recommendations and vet those through many campus stakeholders. Just to summarize where we are so far, Gensler has taken WSU through an evaluation of quantitative data, as well as having meetings with not only on-campus stakeholders, but community stakeholders to really see what's important to the community as well as to the campus to be part of this master planning process. It's a pretty intensive process. We've had quite a few meetings. You can see did surveys of students, faculty, staff, as well as alumni. We've had 950 people replied to the surveys. They've toured the campus. They've looked at buildings. They've taken all the deferred maintenance data, the space utilization data, and they're starting to begin their analysis process to look at all of that in a big picture. They've also have over 140 focused stakeholder meetings. We've taken some one-on-ones with, you can see here, every college had a chance to have one-on-one discussions. We've talked with student affairs departments. We worked through with facilities as well as outreaching in every one of these other categories here. So a really intensive, focused effort to make sure that everyone has a voice in this process, to make sure that we're developing a master plan that is a document that is something that we use to make decisions and not something that we just do every 10 years because that's the requirement to do it. So we want it to be something that's flexible and something that is responsive to the needs of the community and the stakeholders. As Emporia just walked through, we also are faced with a tremendous backlog of deferred maintenance on campus. Just to put this in context, we've developed, I think, taking the FCI scores to more of a heat map on campus so we can start to make decisions and prioritize our capital projects towards making big strides in this FCI index as well. So this is a map showing all of the mission critical type 1 buildings in the color, and then the auxiliary buildings are in the non-colored buildings on campus. So we are, again, just at the beginning of this process, so we hope to come back to you with the conclusion of this at the end and really walk you through everything. But we are going to use the strategic and student success and persistence initiatives that we're working through to guide our decisions through this, as well as the KBOR's initiatives on space utilization and deferred maintenance priorities to identify those important capital projects that we need to focus on and develop the next campus framework map that we would bring back for discussion. So mine's very brief because we're right in the middle of the beginning of the process. So if you had any questions, I will take those.
Questions? Yeah, well, thank you. We'll look forward to the completed process. Thanks. And President Mason.
I do have a PowerPoint for this one.
Oh, okay.
There we go. I'm pleased to share an update on our master plan. It's been shaped by many voices. And I would like to take this moment to give thanks to Dana Cunningham, our Director of Facilities Planning. I wasn't smart enough to bring him along. Dr. Andrew Feldstein, Assistant Provost for Teaching, Innovation and Learning Technologies, our senior leadership team, and the members of our Digital Master Plan Committee. A favorite student development theorist of mine is Robert Pace, who said student success is dependent on the quality of effort that the student puts into college and what the college does to make that quality of effort worthwhile. This is truly a partnership. It has to include the student and has to include the university. It's essential. And that's why we focused our master planning process on maximizing the teaching and learning ethos. Our 10-year update planning process occurred in 2021. HTK and Smith Group engaged our senior leadership team throughout the process. During the discovery phase, the consultants interviewed more than 700 students, faculty, staff, and community leaders. We also had a place on our website for people to post their ideas to a virtual idea board. While we were listening to deepen our understanding of the issues and the opportunities to inform our planning effort, we had an aha moment. If our largest sector of students experiencing teaching and learning are online students, then to maximize the teaching and learning environment, it would become critical for us to supplement the campus plan, which traditionally drives resources to physical structures, with a digital master plan. So while the work continued on the traditional master plan, a group led by Dr. Andrew Feldstein, Assistant Provost for Teaching, Innovation and Learning Technologies, was charged with developing our very first digital master plan. And I'll come back to that in a moment. So back to our traditional master plan, our campus plan pictured on the left heavily invests in aging infrastructure and aligns with the board's priorities to address deferred maintenance pictured on the right. It also provides us with the flexibility to embrace new and unforeseen opportunities that our facilities can be responsive to, the dynamic forces that shape higher education and allow us to maximize teaching and learning. We ultimately developed 4 priorities for the 10-year plan: improve pedestrian safety, create efficiencies by redesigning campus landscaping, and in alignment with the Kansas Board of Regents priorities, continue our long-standing efforts to reduce deferred maintenance. And with that alignment, we signaled to the campus that deferred maintenance and renovation would be our focus. To improve the pedestrian safety, last summer, we changed the traffic flow onto Campus Drive. This summer, we'll make similar modifications at the intersection of Gusted, South Campus, and College Drives. And we are also removing parking between the library and the College of Business building. Our campus has many, many beautiful flower beds and grassy areas that are extremely labor intensive, not to mention water usage, which is important in Hayes, Kansas. So therefore, our master plan prioritizes changing out the landscape to low maintenance plantings and grasses. According to the KBOR study, our mission critical deferred maintenance is 198 million. The Foresight Library renovation will address 25 million of our deferred maintenance. 19 million will be recovered by federal funds, with the remaining 6 million from our deferred maintenance budget. The Gross Memorial Coliseum HVAC project, first time in its life to have HVAC, will address 7.6 million of our deferred maintenance. We received 5 million, in ARPA funds for this project. The balance will be paid for our deferred maintenance budget. So those are our two big projects going on, but we've also been working consistently on deferred maintenance. These projects reduced our deferred maintenance by more than 1.8 million. These lists are not comprehensive, you'll see over the next couple of slides, but they do represent some progress made. Just want to give you a flavoring of that. A sampling of current projects in fiscal year 23 reduced our deferred maintenance by approximately $8.6 million. And some of the fiscal year 24 priorities, they anticipated to reduce our deferred maintenance by another 2.2 million. That brings me back to our efforts to begin work on our digital master plan. As we began this work 2 years ago, we had a strong gut feeling about what we meant and what we needed to do, but we lacked both the language and the tools. Meanwhile, as we have gained over the last 2 years, both the language and the tools, ChatGPT made its arrival and did a pretty good job in seconds of addressing our why. Our first step was to map our current teaching and learning environment. We did this through an analysis of our strategic plan initiatives and progress, NESI data, NIST diagnostic analysis and playbook, Blackboard A4L analytics, our post-pandemic survey on community and social belonging, and our Tiger to Tiger social belonging survey. Some themes that emerged included opportunities to create a coherent and consistent vision of student success, as well as to better organize and contextualize the data around student engagement. We also learned that we can do more to engage our online students with course content, faculty, other students in the Fort Hays community. Then we conducted a gap analysis to test our congruence among teaching and learning ecosystem, our university mission statement, and the goals of our university strategic plan. We hired Blackboard educational consultants to conduct focus groups. We also conducted an audit of our teaching and learning ecosystem to determine compatibility with student-faculty interaction, collaborative learning, regular and substantive feedback, and a more holistic course design and delivery. So now we're taking all of that information to build out our digital master plan, which we anticipate to be completed by early August. So these are the strategies we've used to move through our digital master plan study, and we look forward to sharing that with you in the fall. And that's what it's all about right there.
Thank you. Any questions? Appreciate the update. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to the governance tab on page 97. John, are you handling this or am I? Okay, will interject periodically then.
I'll be short. I don't have a PowerPoint. You all may recall last September and November, the board reviewed and acted on conflict of interest disclosures reported through the annual cycle. We do that every year. Regent Harrison Lee has now reported a new potential conflict, and it's listed on page 97 of your board books. In accordance with board policy, the board is now include the reported interest in its minutes and provide direction to Regent Harrison Lee as to the participation in board actions involving the reported contract or transaction is the language of the policy, which in this case is acceptance by Wichita State University into the Education Leadership Doctoral Program.
Can we pause and have applause for that?
Yes.
Congratulations.
And so the governance committee reviewed the disclosure at its meeting last month and concurs with staff recommendation, which is to direct Regent Harrison Lee to excuse herself from participating as a regent in any board action directly impacting the program in which she is enrolled, such as program review or approval of those specific program fees. And for the minutes, I'd request that the vice chair suggest asking for abstentions for anyone that might want to abstain from this particular vote.
Okay, all right. So before we do that, my recollection of the governance committee meeting was first, we also congratulated Regent Harrison Lee for her acceptance then. And certainly it's quite appropriate that you reported this to us. So we appreciate that. We know you're a rules follower and would always do such things, but we still appreciate it. So again, we strongly recommend that we celebrate the making development a priority and follow these instructions. But of course, anybody who believes they should abstain, please do so. So with that, I would entertain a motion along these lines. Thank you, Regent Dicus. Thank you, Regent. Okay, any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, aye, please. Aye. Any opposed? Oh, and any abstentions? Thank you, Regent Harrison Lee. All right, so again, congratulations, and that's wonderful. Okay, that takes us to the legislative update, and it looks like Elaine is planning on doing that.
Yeah, I think Matt Casey isn't going to be joining us today.
Elaine's probably going to tell us why that is.
Yeah. Steve, if you pull up my PowerPoint, it's a lengthy one. Jack Casey is here. 8 pounds, 14 ounces, and came very quickly. And mom and baby are doing well. So that means you have me today to give you the legislative update, I'm afraid. So the legislature went home. It's officially come to an end. They came back on April 26th. And they started their veto session on that Wednesday. They concluded their work on Friday after 3 days of work, after some conference committee reports and numerous veto override votes. In an unusual move, the legislature adjourned sine die at the end of the veto session. Typically, they do come back for 1 day after the governor issues her vetoes, particularly on the omnibus bill, but they opted to not do that. The omnibus appropriation bill does have some items for higher education on top of what the mega budget bill had passed before first adjournment. So I just have a few of those highlights for you, and then you can get on down to your dinner. We did get $8.5 million for our NIST playbooks for our student success initiatives, $1 million to Washburn for their student success initiatives, a $13 million salary pool for state university employee pay increases, $700,000 additional funding for our Kansas Hero Scholarship Act. $13 million will be divided between Wichita State and KU Med for the Health Science Center. $2 million for 2 projects each. So $4 million for Pittsburgh State's new Center for Emerging Technologies and the new Global Center for STEM and Technical Education. So these are all items that were in your budget as proposed to the governor. And of course, as we talked in fiscal affairs, $6 million for Fort Hays to eliminate the student fee for the Center for Student Success will buy down that debt. $1.2 million for K-State Polytechnic, the turbine transportation program, and $10.5 million for the technical colleges for increased capacity for high demand, high wage, and critical need workforce areas. One other substantive bill was passed during the omnibus session. House Bill 2060 will make changes to the AOK to Work program to include books, tools, and personal materials to be covered by the program. So we have our state program for that, for allocations to the 2-year schools. So now we can also assist students with that as they go through the GED Accelerator. A couple items Matt has noted for you. I'm sticking closely to his script. The TEA, the bill to reorganize the TEA, did not pass this session. But he indicates it might be a good idea to have discussions before the next session begins to get some feedback from business and industry and stakeholders. And the DEI, this provision in the budget was vetoed and the legislature did not secure enough votes for an override. But they did introduce House Bill 2460, so that will carry over as a bill for next year. And there has been an audit authorized by Legislative Post Audit Committee on DEI that will be related only to the state universities. We do not know the timeline for when that audit will be conducted, but it has been authorized. And then just as a reminder, we had some other bills pass. Of course, House Bill 2290 authorizes affiliation between Fort Hays State and Northwest Kansas Technical College and North Central Kansas Technical College. Senate Bill 123 created the Adult Learner Grant Act. House Bill 2292 creates the Engineering Higher Education Matching Grants Program. So we're going to get a little bit more funding for our engineering programs. And it also includes an educator apprenticeship program in that bill for KSDE and Commerce to work on. So all in all, a very successful session. We received a lot of support financially and with our legislation. And with that, I'll stop right there.
Questions? Right. Thank you for the update. Thanks for standing in. Am I supposed to ask for any other business? Can I do that? Do you want me to take this motion right now? Okay. All right. I would like to suggest that we amend the agenda amend the agenda for tomorrow to consider a policy change in our approval process, in this case for private housing. So we'd like to do that first out tomorrow. So if anybody would like to move that. Thank you. Thank you. All in favor, aye, please. Any opposed? Okay, so that'll be the first thing on our agenda tomorrow before we adjourn into executive session. And we'll cover that in more detail. All right. So we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much for everything you've done, you did today, and that you're doing. Thank you.